Chapter 1723. Miss Zhou's eyes were once again spewing flames, but Yang Chun still ignored it and said, "Maybe I need to use my divine sense to examine it in detail." After a pause, Yang Chun added, "This is not a natural change. I suspect that it is some kind of unique seal." Hearing the word seal, Ms. Zhou's expression changed again. In the end, she forcibly suppressed her anger and did not say anything for a long time. After a while, Ms. Zhou lowered her head and said, "There has never been an outsider who has touched me." Her voice was very low and almost inaudible. If it were not for Yang Chen's good cultivation and the fact that the two were not far apart, he would not have been able to hear it clearly. Hearing Ms. Zhou's words, Yang Chun was startled. For a moment, he did not understand what Ms. Zhou meant. After a while, he reacted, and his face immediately became interesting. Could it be that this girl was afraid that Yang Chun would take the opportunity to take advantage of her? Yang Chun immediately did not know whether to laugh or cry. Looking at Yang Chen's gaze, Ms. Zhou seemed to realize that she had said something inappropriate and immediately felt embarrassed. But this time, she took the initiative to suppress her anger. It was extinguished before it could erupt. "Come on." She stretched out her wrist in front of Yang Chun again. Miss Zhou had already closed her eyes. She only stretched out her arm to let Yang Chun feel her pulse, but it was as if she was about to go to the execution ground. It made people really speechless. Yang Chun sighed slightly in his heart and reached out to feel Miss Zhou's wrist. Miss Zhou's arm was still covered in an opaque black robe. Fortunately, he could feel her pulse just by holding her wrist like this, so there was no need to lift the black robe. Even through the black robe, Yang Chun could feel the uneven condition of Miss Zhou's arm. He did not know who made this seal, but such an ugly and disgusting seal was too cruel for a woman who regarded her appearance as important as her life. Miss Zhou's character was so surly, so it might have something to do with this seal. Feeling the pulse was just an excuse. The most important thing was to know the condition of this seal. However, this did not prevent Yang Chun from diagnosing Miss Zhou. The result was not surprising at all. An expert who could cultivate to the peak of earthly immortal would not have any internal problems. Unfortunately, Yang Chun was unable to accurately determine the condition of the seal through the layer of black robe. This result made Yang Chun a little embarrassed. In the end, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, "I need to touch your seal." The result of this sentence was the awkwardness between the two of them. Touching the seal didn't sound like a problem, but if the seal was Miss Zhou's skin, it wouldn't be as simple as it sounded. Miss Zhou's skin clearly showed a paler color than usual. Her breathing also seemed to be held. She stood there blankly for a moment. Finally, for some unknown reason, she closed her eyes and slowly took a step forward, allowing Yang Chun to reach out and touch her face. Yang Chun finally felt relieved and reached out to touch Miss Zhou's skin. To be honest, under the state of the seal, the bumpy feeling was very uncomfortable. But Yang Chun couldn't care less. He also released a wisp of his spiritual consciousness and began to carefully perceive this seemingly ugly seal. Miss Zhou, who was touched by Yang Chun, must have accepted that Yang Chun would use his spiritual consciousness to explore this kind of behavior. She kept her eyes closed, but her body was trembling. She clenched her teeth and the muscles on her face were tight, as if she was enduring something. After a series of spiritual consciousness exploration and personal perception, Yang Chun finally determined the type of seal. With a long breath, Yang Chun retracted his hand and took a step back. Miss Zhou also opened her eyes and looked at Yang Chun with expectation. "I already know what kind of seal it is." Yang Chun gave the other party an affirmative answer first. It was obvious that Miss Zhou also felt relieved, and the anticipation in her eyes deepened. "I can unlock the seal, but unlocking the seal requires some special things, which I don't have on hand right now." Yang Chun immediately said the second sentence. This was the truth. Yang Chun had a lot of ordinary materials, but there was one key thing that Yang Chun did not have. The seal on Miss Zhou's body was a protective seal. Its purpose was not to destroy Ms. Zhou's cultivation and body. In Yang Chen's view, it was more like Ms. Zhou's appearance was completely sealed so that she would not suffer some bad treatment because of her outstanding appearance. Of course, this seal was a bit too cruel for a girl who loved to look beautiful. The starting point was good, but did not take into account Miss Zhou's own wishes. The person who imposed the seal placed the seal on Miss Zhou's body wishfully. It was not known who he was to Miss Zhou that he would use such a stupid method to protect Miss Zhou. Hearing Yang Chen say that the seal could be unlocked, Miss Zhou's face was filled with joy, but when she heard the following words, her two uneven eyebrows immediately wrinkled, forming an unusually ugly expression. Perhaps realizing this, Miss Zhou quickly covered her face with the black veil again, revealing only her eyes, which looked much more pleasing to the eye. Looking at this scene, Yang Chen also sighed in his heart. How many supercilious looks did this poor woman endure to have such performance? What else is missing? Where can I find it? Miss Zhou's mood was very anxious. She used to think that it was a problem of her cultivation aging. When Li Cheng told her, she couldn't believe it, but when Alchemy Grandmaster Yang Chen said the same, Miss Zhou was sure that she was like this because of the seal. For a moment, how could she bear it? She couldn't wait to know how to solve her problem. I need a kind of heaven and earth treasure with a large source of vitality. Yang Chen didn't hide it and said it directly. The seal on your body will destroy the vitality on the surface of your body. Your cultivation will not be affected, but the growth of your body will be extremely distorted and aged. This is also the reason why you look a little old now. Yang Chen only said that she looked old and did not say anything else, but the word distorted he said before actually contained a lot of meaning. Miss Zhou could understand it as soon as she heard it. If you want to break the seal, the safest way is to break the seal. Now we need a kind of heaven and earth treasure with a large source of vitality to make the seal reach its limit. This way, it will not affect your cultivation, nor will it affect your body. Yang Chen explained the reason for the need of heaven and earth treasure, and then added, however, this kind of heaven and earth treasure is not easy to find. The matter of the acquired spiritual root in the mortal world had spread to the spiritual realm. Miss Zhou could also understand the level of the heaven and earth treasure that Yang Chen mentioned. It was a nice saying that it could only be encountered but not sought. So far, no one had found it. Miss Zhou's heart just had a little hope, but she began to fall into despair again. Chapter 1724. When I was in the mortal world, I once found such a heavenly treasure, but in order to improve the postnatal spiritual roots of several elders and friends, I have used up all of them. Yang Chen didn't hide the fact that he had found it. This matter must have been spread, so there was no need to hide it. I will try my best to find it. After listening to Yang Chen's explanation, Miss Zhou also knew the importance of this kind of heavenly treasure, but this kind of thing wasn't easy to find. She could only try her luck. It seemed that this time, she could only do this. Miss Zhou's heart was completely desperate. I may know the location of something, but I'm not sure if it is still there. Just when Miss Zhou had completely lost all hope, Yang Chen's sudden words brought her to heaven again. Do you know where it is? Miss Zhou's eyes widened in an instant. She stared at Yang Chen with a look of disbelief. It was as if she was about to fall into the abyss and suddenly found a hand grabbing her. That feeling was like escaping from death. This was what Miss Zhou was feeling right now. She was pleasantly surprised, but also in disbelief. The surprise was aimed at himself, but he couldn't believe it was aimed at Yang Chen. This level of goods, how many great figures of the fairy immortal level had not discovered it? Yang Chen, a mere human immortal junior, dared to say such big words? Miss Zhou wasn't completely without a channel. Yang Chen still didn't know Miss Zhou's real identity. The spiritual world was so big that there were all kinds of strange things. No one knew how many heavenly treasures had grown. Relying on her prestige, Miss Zhou could also ask many experts to help her find it. As for whether they could find it or not, it really depended on luck. But Yang Chen actually said that he knew where it was, which made people a little suspicious. But at this time, the most emotion in Miss Zhou's mind was not doubt. Li Cheng's confident expression when he gave her pointers appeared in front of her eyes again, as if he firmly believed that Yang Chen would definitely help her solve the trouble. Now it seemed that Li Cheng didn't have ordinary trust in Yang Chen. Where is it? Let's go find it right away. When it came to her appearance, Miss Zhou had endured it for many years. At this moment, she didn't want to endure it any longer and immediately requested to set off. I can't be sure if the item is still there. Besides, we need to make some preparations before we set off. Yang Chun stopped Miss Zhou's impatience and stated his reason. Besides, I just came out of closed-door cultivation and still need to pay a visit to my elders. Miss Zhou also realized that she had lost her composure. Now that she had hope, she behaved like a lady. She no longer looked like she couldn't suppress her anger easily like before. Li Cheng said that you were looking for this thing and asked me to bring it to you. After calming her mind, Miss Zhou took out a zither from her cosmos sack and handed it to Yang Chun. Looking at this zither that was exactly the same as the one he had obtained from the Zhao family, Yang Chun was sure that Miss Zhou must have met Big Brother Li Cheng. The others wouldn't let anyone bring anything over. This was the sixth zither that Yang Chun had seen, and he didn't know what was inside. Since Li Cheng asked Miss Zhou to bring it over, Yang Chun didn't stand on ceremony and reached out to take it. Thank you. Yang Chun thanked her very seriously. I still have to thank you. When Miss Zhou said this sentence, her tone was very sincere. Yang Chun understood her feelings and said, "You rest here for a few days. I'll leave when I'm ready." Okay. Miss Zhou agreed very meekly. Although her voice was still hoarse and unpleasant to hear, it had a different flavor. The heavenly materials and earthly treasures mentioned before were what Yang Chun learned from the Immortals on the Immortal beheading platform. The Immortal crane and the Sika deer under the South Pole, Immortal Wung, each had an immortal peach. The Sika deer couldn't bear to eat the immortal peach, so it was placed in a cave abode in the spiritual world. He didn't know if that cave abode was still there or if anyone had visited it. A complete immortal peach was definitely stronger than the peach pit in the mortal world. There was no doubt about this. In particular, the spiritual pressure in the spiritual world was 100 times that of the mortal world. He didn't know what the immortal peach had become. Originally, Yang Chun also planned to wait for the problem of his spiritual awareness to be solved before going to find the immortal peach. Now that Big Brother Li Cheng pointed out Miss Zhou to find him, he could only go and get the immortal peach first. In the sixth zither, Yang Chun took out the third dragon bone string pillar, and at the same time, he found the location of the sixth master seal. For the time being, Yang Chun didn't know who to give this master to. He would wait until he found the seventh zither before giving it to Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue. A month later, Yang Chun left Chunyang Palace with Miss Zhou, who was dressed in a black robe and covered with a black veil. To be exact, Yang Chun stayed in one of Miss Zhou's spatial magic treasures and was taken out of Chunyang Palace by Miss Zhou. It was the first time that Yang Chun left in this way. It couldn't be helped. Now that Yang Chun's reputation was too great, once someone knew that Yang Chun went out, they would definitely target Yang Chun. This time, he was quietly looking for heavenly treasures, so it was better to be as low-key as possible so as not to be disturbed by some people. When he said this method, Miss Zhou was very surprised for a while. She thought that a person like Yang Chun must be a man to the extreme and would never think of secretly hiding in a woman's spatial magic treasure. She didn't expect that Yang Chun would take the initiative to propose it, which was very surprising. However, Miss Zhou didn't object. This time, Yang Chun was helping her, and this method was also to reduce trouble. Therefore, not only did Miss Zhou not feel that Yang Chun was sneaky and not manly, but she was very grateful in her heart. The territory of Chunyang Palace was now very lively, especially on the way to the Sunset Rock, where the cultivators were bustling. Miss Zhou didn't stay here for long. After simply buying some things in a few shops, she left in a hurry. It didn't even take a day. Then it was a crazy rush. Miss Zhou used the fastest magic treasure and flew all the way. On the way, Yang Chun was also fortunate to see Miss Zhou's domineering nature. When he encountered cultivators in the places he passed, it was fine if they ignored Miss Zhou, but once someone pointed at Miss Zhou, they would immediately be attacked by Miss Zhou. Miss Zhou's attack method was the same as before in Chunyang Palace, all of which were sound techniques, but when she launched them, the power was much stronger. The strength of the peak of the Earth Immortal was enough to ensure that she had few opponents. Yang Chen finally understood the identity of Miss Zhou. Apart from the legendary Granny Tianqin, there was no one else who could use sound techniques in this way. It had to be said that some things were so coincidental. Yang Chen also planned to find Granny Tianqin to see if she could find a few zither, but he didn't expect Granny Tianqin to take the initiative to send them to him. Chapter 1725. Granny Tianqin was the daughter of a great figure in the immortal realm. Her appearance had been sealed in the spiritual realm and was only unsealed after ascending to the immortal realm. Because of her perverse and ruthless nature, she was later called Fairy Tianqin. She was famous in the immortal realm and was even more famous than Snow Dance. It was no wonder that this sealing technique was so brilliant. Apart from Li Cheng and Yang Chen, no one else in the spiritual realm would discover this seal. Even Granny Tianqin herself was kept in the dark. She always thought that it was a problem with her cultivation that caused her to become deformed and old. She never thought that it was a problem with the seal. Granny Tianqin, who now had hope, was extremely hostile towards anyone who dared to obstruct her from breaking the seal. As long as there was even the slightest sign of it, she would resolutely kill the threat while it was still in its infancy. Normal cultivators with poor eyesight would be directly shattered by the sound of Granny Tianqin's voice. Granny Tianqin would use her natal magic treasure, the celestial phoenix zither, against those who were slightly stronger. It had to be said that the celestial phoenix zither's power was great. As long as the zither was played, very few wouldn't be affected. Most of them would be directly torn apart and die without a complete corpse. Less than 1 in 10 would survive a round of killing. Even if there were a few that survived, they would only be able to last a little longer. In the end, they couldn't escape death. A month after leaving Sunset Rock, Yang Chen came out of Granny Tianqin's spatial magic treasure and began his journey. It wasn't that he didn't trust Granny Tianqin, but that the cave abode was filled with many restrictions. Yang Chen had to personally open it. Although he killed many cultivators along the way, it was generally smooth. At least, no Heaven Immortal level experts appeared. As for those below Heaven Immortal level, those who had malicious intent or suspected malicious intent had all been killed by Granny Tianqin. For now, there was no one following them. Yang Chen only wanted to hide his journey, but he didn't expect Granny Tianqin to go this far. However, with her rumored personality and reputation for killing people like flies, it was already strange that she only killed so few people. This did not have much to do with Yang Chen, and the cause and effect would not fall on Yang Chen. Yang Chen did not care about Granny Tianqin's business. However, ever since Yang Chen had come out, Granny Tianqin very rarely killed people. Moreover, Yang Chen was the leader, and sometimes she would even act according to Yang Chen's mood. In such an abnormal situation, Yang Chen obviously thought that Granny Tianqin's hope of breaking the seal was on him, so it was not surprising that he had enough respect for him. Now that they were in a sparsely populated place, there was no need to kill so much. Yang Chen's own killing intent was not small, but taking revenge and killing innocents were two completely different things. It should be here. Yang Chen looked at the barren mountain and calculated in his mind before coming to a conclusion. Here, Granny Tianqin looked suspiciously at the barren mountain that did not even have a bit of greenery. Her heart was filled with suspicion. How could there be treasures in this kind of place where birds don't even lay eggs? There was not even a bit of spirit energy around. So how could the treasures grow? After her suspicions, she thought about it again and felt that it was reasonable. Since it was a treasure of heaven and earth, it definitely did not need ordinary spirit energy. Therefore, it was very normal for it to absorb all the spirit energy in the surrounding thousands of miles. Looking at the barren surroundings, maybe that thing was still there. As a result, Granny Tianqin became more and more expectant, wishing that she could see the treasure of heaven and earth immediately. From a rough estimate, this barren mountain range had a radius of tens of thousands of miles. Moreover, after scanning with her divine sense, she could not find anything. Aside from stone mountains, there were only stone mountains. There was nothing out of the ordinary. After Granny Tianqin did a simple scan of the surroundings, she completely handed the baton to Yang Chen. No one was a fool. This kind of situation It was not only Granny Tianqin who could think of it, other cultivators could as well. It could be imagined that this place had already been explored by countless people, both in the open and in the dark. They must have found nothing, which was why they had given up on it. Yangchen also released his divine sense. After exploring most of the place, he identified the direction according to the position of the sun and began to fly towards a certain location. Granny Tianqin did not say anything and got up to follow. "Get ready." When Yang Chun was very close to Granny Tianqin, he released a trace of his divine sense and sent a thought to Granny Tianqin. At such a close distance, Yang Chun did not speak, but instead sent a thought. The situation was not good. Granny Tianqin's expression did not change, but she secretly prepared her life source magic weapon, ready to launch the strongest attack at any time. However, no matter how she released her divine sense, she could not find the enemy's position. From this point, it could be seen that although Granny Tianqin's cultivation was high, her divine sense was not as good as Yang Chen's. Although Granny Tianqin was not convinced, she had to admit this result. Yang Chun did not expect that there would be a few experts secretly watching in this desolate place. If it was not for Yang Chen's super sharp divine sense, he would not have been able to find those hidden experts. Those mysterious fellows were actually hiding at the edge of the Bear Mountain. Without affecting their own cultivation, they used several very secret formations to observe every movement in this tens of thousands of miles of area. As long as a cultivator came in, they would be aware. Yang Chun had already discovered 3 of the hidden divine sense probing of the experts, and his men were also ready. Judging from the cultivation of the divine sense, the other party was likely to be a heaven immortal level expert. It would not be easy to repel the enemy without destroying the cave. After flying for a while, just 1,000 miles into the area, Yang Chun recalled his flying sword and landed on the ground. Granny Tianqin also put away her magic weapon and followed Yang Chun back to the ground. This was a small valley. It did not look special. There were 2 stone mountains on both sides, and the ground was also covered with stones. If one had to say that it was different, it would be that these 2 stone mountains were almost 2 huge stones, one on each side, sandwiching the valley in the middle. The place where the 2 of them landed was facing a huge stone wall. The stone wall was almost vertical, and there was nothing on it except for the traces of weathering. It could still be vaguely seen that it was originally very smooth. "Pay attention," Yang Chun warned Granny Tianqin, then immediately made a hand sign and blasted it on the stone wall. After the hand sign touched the originally bare stone wall, it burst into a ball of light, and then the light quickly spread to the whole stone wall and soon covered the whole stone wall. On the stone wall, a very clear picture appeared. Chapter 17:26. The moment the picture appeared, 3 powerful consciousnesses unscrupulously swept over the place where Yang Chun and Granny Tianqin were, as well as the mountain wall. The picture on the mountain wall was immediately seen by them, and at the same time, 3 powerful consciousnesses with a strong sense of warning were directly transmitted over. "Stand over there, youngsters." In Yang Chen's ears, he could already clearly hear an unfamiliar voice. Although the other 2 experts did not speak, the meaning of the warning in their consciousnesses was similar. Yang Chen glanced at Granny Tianqin, and Granny Tianqin's gaze also happened to meet. The 2 of them looked at each other and understood each other's meaning. The person had not yet appeared, and neither Yang Chun nor Granny Tianqin moved. They just stood there and waited. From the perspective of the 3 experts, the 2 youngsters should have been intimidated by their power and did not dare to move. In the distance, 3 figures appeared in 3 different directions. The 3 of them were very fast, rushing over like lightning. In a moment, the 3 of them arrived at the edge of the valley at almost the same time. Before the 3 of them landed on the ground and carefully examined the picture on the mountain wall, Granny Tianqin could no longer hold back and launched an attack. The heavenly phoenix Zither suddenly appeared in front of them. Granny Tianqin played it with both hands, and countless formless sound waves with killing intent attacked the 3 experts. Boom! Formless ripples spread wildly to the 3 experts. In an instant, several different magic treasures appeared on the three experts' bodies, blocking Granny Tianqin's attack. Granny Tianqin was indeed worthy of being called a strong woman. Even though the three who had already appeared seemed to have reached the heaven immortal realm, her sound waves continued to attack. At this moment, Yang Chun did not just stand by and watch. When Granny Tianqin's zither sounded, the golden bell on Yang Chen's body had already appeared. The sound of the zither did not distinguish between friend and foe, and would still fall on Yang Chen's body. Facing a strong enemy, Granny Tianqin could not control her power to prevent Yang Chun from being injured, so Yang Chun could only protect himself. As Granny Tianqin's zither sounded, Yang Chen's golden bell also began to hum. They were both sound techniques, but Yang Chen's golden bell was more of an attack on the consciousness. Under the combined attacks of Granny Tianqin and Yang Chun, the protective magic treasures on the three began to crack at a speed visible to the naked eye. They only lasted for a moment before shattering. However, in this short period of time, the three had already arrived in front of the stone wall. The three had already completely arrived in front of the stone wall. The one who posed the greatest threat was obviously Granny Tianqin and Yang Chun. After all, she was at the peak of the Earth Immortal stage and was only one step away from becoming a Sky Immortal. The three of them spent a lot of energy dealing with Granny Tianqin and Yang Chen's attacks. The cave left behind by the South Pole, Immortal Wang's sick deer, was not an ordinary cave. After all, it was a peak earthly immortal, only one step away from becoming a Sky Immortal. The three spent a lot of energy on Granny Tianqin to deal with Yang Chun and Granny Tianqin's attacks. The cave left behind by the South Pole, Immortal Wang's sick deer, was not an ordinary cave. If one did not know about some of the arrangements, it would be a disaster for those who wanted to rashly enter. Yang Chun was not the only one who knew about this danger. In fact, the three experts who rushed overall knew about it. This information had been passed down from generation to generation, and they knew that there was a cave left behind by a super expert. However, no one knew where this tens of thousands of kilometers of area was. Today, two juniors had finally found the place. The picture on the stone wall clearly indicated that the entrance to the cave was behind the stone wall. However, everyone knew that there were definitely unknown dangers inside. It was very likely that the two juniors were the ones who knew about the situation inside. Therefore, while everyone attacked, no one tried to kill them. Everyone attacked in unison. If they wanted to trap Yang Chun and Granny Tianqin, the ideal situation would be to capture the two alive and then interrogate them about the secret. However, even though the three of them knew each other and knew each other's details, they were not close enough to trust each other completely. While attacking Yang Chun and Granny Tianqin, the three of them were on guard against each other. This so-called cooperation with ulterior motives was a joke in Yang Chen's eyes. However, even so, Granny Tianqin still felt a mountainous pressure from three Heaven Immortal experts, suppressing a peak Earth Immortal expert. She tried her best to control the Heavenly Phoenix Zither, but she could not hold on any longer. Yang Chen's bell attacks could divert some of the three experts' attention, but it was not enough to completely relieve Granny Tianqin of the pressure. In this kind of situation, Yang Chun needed to do something to attract the attention of the three experts. For the time being, Yang Chun did not want to reveal his super strong backing. Although Li Cheng had introduced Granny Tianqin, Yang Chun did not trust her to the point where he would reveal his secrets. Seeing that the three of them were attacking Granny Tianqin at the same time and did not use their full strength, Yang Chun suddenly turned his hand and struck the stone wall. Boom, boom, boom. A series of rumbling sounds came from behind the stone wall. The sound was very loud, causing the three experts to involuntarily stop their attacks. The pressure on Granny Tianqin immediately lessened. She quickly retreated, and the sound of the zither also stopped. On the stone wall, in just a few short breaths, a huge hole suddenly opened, revealing the scene inside. Inside, there were a few palaces and a flat plaza, indicating that the hidden door of the cave was already open. The five people's divine sense almost simultaneously entered the cave and quickly scanned it. What was surprising was that just from the results of the divine sense exploration, there did not seem to be any traps in the cave. They could not help but be overjoyed. Schwa schwa schwa. Several small flags of various colors flew out from one of the expert's bodies and quickly disappeared into the surroundings. Afterwards, the expert did not say anything and directly rushed into the entrance in the stone wall, leaving behind only his warning words. 2 juniors, obediently stay here. If you dare to move, don't blame this old man for being merciless. The other 2 experts were not willing to fall behind and rushed in almost at the same time. Everyone knew each other's background and knew that they could not do anything to each other. The things in the cave would belong to whoever rushed in first. This was not the time to be polite. In any case, Yang Chan and Granny Tianqin were already trapped, so there was no need to worry about them escaping. If they had any questions, they could ask them at any time. Watching the 3 people rush into the Immortal's cave, Yang Chen's eyes did not look at the Immortal's cave again, but swept in another direction. Chapter 17:27. What do we do? Granny Tianqin, who was already exhausted, frowned as she watched the 3 sky immortal experts rush into the entrance. She didn't care about her exhaustion and asked hurriedly, "Don't worry, they'll find theirs, we'll find ours." Yang Chen's tone didn't show any regret at being one step ahead of him. Instead, he spoke very naturally and loudly, not afraid of the 3 experts hearing him. "What do you mean?" Granny Tianqin was a little confused. Wasn't the reason why she had come all the way here for some sort of heavenly treasure that might exist in the cave? Why weren't they in a hurry now that they were at the entrance? "This cave isn't that simple," Yang Chun explained with a smile. "They can go in, but they won't necessarily be able to come out. So you can rest and adjust your breathing. Once you're full of energy, we'll go find what we're looking for." "But," Granny Tianqin wanted to say something, but when she saw Yang Chen's confident gaze, she seemed to think of something and immediately changed her words. She lowered her head slightly and obediently said, "Okay." Yang Chen didn't think too much about it. Seeing Granny Tianqin sit down and adjust her breathing, Yang Chun didn't have any intention of resting. Instead, he looked around and spread out his spiritual sense, constantly searching for the positions of the flag doors. That sky immortal expert thought that he could trap Yang Chun and Granny Tianqin with a mere flag formation. It had to be said that he was too naive. Did he really think that Yang Chun and Granny Tianqin were rookies that didn't know anything about formations? Not long later, Yang Chun found the location of the flag doors and began to silently analyze the flag formation that made the experts so confident. It had to be said that the guy's flag formation was quite good. If it was a normal expert, they might really be trapped without any way out. Unfortunately, that guy never imagined that he would encounter a monster with the memories of the immortal world. No matter how powerful the spiritual realm's array was, there were always traces in the immortal world. Even though Yang Chun had never seen this array formation before, everyone's array formation was unique. However, as long as Yang Chun could find a similar array formation and understand its basic principles, it would not be difficult for him to break it. By the time Yang Chun found a way to break the formation, Granny Tianqin had already finished meditating and stood up. After a period of rest, Granny Tianqin had completely recovered. "Just nice. I still need your help to break the formation," Yang Chun said with a smile. He didn't have the awkwardness of being a big man, but instructing a weak woman to work. He took it for granted and said, "You follow the method I said. Go and collect the flag array. Don't waste it. It's a good item refined by a heaven immortal expert. Take it as a reward for this." Granny Tianqin rolled her eyes at Yang Chun and obediently went to do her work. With such a set of flags, it was enough to offset the fear she had felt earlier, and there was still more to spare. Moreover, according to what Yang Chun said, without the power of the late Earth Immortal stage, it was impossible to break the formation from the inside. After all, it was a trapped person. To be able to find a flaw in the formation from the inside, it was definitely a great formation expert. In this regard, Granny Tianqin was still very impressed. She had a high opinion of Yang Chun, but at the same time, she was slightly surprised. Yang Chun had never been famous in the field of formations. She had only heard of his reputation in alchemy. She didn't expect his attainments and formations to be so high. This man was really hard to fathom. The entrance on the stone wall was not closed. From where they stood, they could still see the situation inside. However, Yang Chun had no intention of going in. Back then, on the Immortal beheading platform, the Cicadier had told Yang Chun the secret of this cave abode. From here, one could only enter and not leave. However, the Cicadier did not say where the Immortal Peach was. It only said that it was on the side of the cave abode. Yang Chun remembered very clearly that it was on the side of the cave abode, but he never said it was inside the cave abode. In addition, the mystery of the cave abode being only able to enter and not leave made people suspect that the South Pole Immortal Wang Cicadier had other intentions. It was on the side of the cave abode, but it was not necessarily inside the cave abode. Where else could it be? Yang Chen's eyes were looking around, analyzing and guessing. He wanted to figure out whether he wanted to enter the Immortal's cave or not. Even if the Cicadier set up a restriction when he ascended, it was not as strong as the Earth Dragon. Even if he entered the cave abode, Yang Chun was confident that he could come out. However, there was no need to go in for the time being. Weren't the three Heaven Immortal experts exploring inside? The entrance on the stone wall was like a magnified mirror. What the people inside were doing could be seen clearly from the outside. Even when the three of them entered the palace to plunder, it could be seen clearly from the outside. It was as if it was deliberately arranged. This made Yang Chun feel that this treasure hunting game was more interesting. It was true that this was a barren mountain, but it did not mean that there was no grass. There would always be some strong plants that would take root and grow in some unimaginable places. In the stone crevices on the rock walls, as long as there was a bit of soil, there might be a stalk of grass growing tenaciously, revealing a rare bit of green. Yang Chen's gaze swept across the entire valley bit by bit. Finally, it stopped at a certain place. After looking carefully, a smile finally appeared on Yang Chen's face. "What are you smiling about?" Granny Tianqin's voice sounded in his ear. Yang Chun raised his head and saw that Granny Tianqin had already put away the flag array according to the method Yang Chun taught her. At this moment, she was happily showing off tens of colorful flags. After showing them to Yang Chun, she quickly put them away and happily smiled. "These are all mine. There's nothing for you to do." Even though Granny Tianqin's voice was still as unpleasant as before and her body was still covered in a black robe and black gauze, the lively and happy expression she displayed still clearly conveyed the joy in her heart to Yang Chun. "I'm not smiling about anything. We just found what we were looking for." Yang Chun also did not hide the smile on his face. Even his tone carried a smile as he answered Granny Tianqin. "Really?" Granny Tianqin was overjoyed and hurriedly asked, "Where is it? Where is it?" "Over there." Yang Chun tilted his head and gestured to the direction he had just looked at with his chin and said with a smile. Granny Tianqin's gaze quickly turned in that direction, following Yang Chen's gesture. Then, a look of doubt appeared on her face. She turned her head to look at Yang Chun, then turned in that direction. The doubt in her heart deepened. Was there something in that direction? Chapter 17:28. No matter how Granny Tianqin looked at it, it didn't look like there were any treasures there. When they were almost there, Yang Chun told her that he was looking for an immortal peach, but other than the stones, where was the peach? After carefully observing for a while, the ground and the mountain wall in that direction were almost plowed by Granny Tianqin's eyes, but she didn't find anything related to the peach. She didn't give up and used her divine sense again, frantically exploring in that direction and several miles deep underground, but she didn't find anything unusual. As for the mountain wall, her divine sense had already passed through from one side to the other, but she still didn't find anything worth seeing. After searching back and forth countless times, Granny Tianqin even looked at the peach-like stones, but she still couldn't find the immortal peach that Yang Chun said. In the end, she could only look at Yang Chun, waiting for the answer to be revealed. Looking at Granny Tianqin's childlike performance, Yang Chun couldn't help but laugh. Yang Chun's laughter made Granny Tianqin angry. After she called out Granny Tianqin's name, no one had ever dared to laugh in front of her like this. Among them, There were many Heaven Immortal experts who came to ask for help, but today they were laughed at by Yang Chun, a worldly Immortal Junior. However, the strange thing was that Granny Tianqin didn't feel angry at all. There was only another unique feeling in her heart. It seemed that such a scene was also a rare experience for Granny Tianqin. There was an indescribable taste, very relaxed, very comfortable feeling. Under the strange and critical gaze of Granny Tianqin, Yang Chun took a few steps forward, then summoned his Penglai Divine with flying sword. Holding the hilt in his hand, squatted on the ground and began to dig. After a while, he carefully stood up with a stone that he had dug out with both hands. This is it. Looking at the thing in Yang Chen's hand, Granny Tianqin couldn't believe her eyes. How is this possible? There was a very obvious crack on the stone that Yang Chen was holding. The crack was not wide. The widest part was only 2 to 3 centimeters, and the length was only 3 to 4 inches. The crevice was filled with some black soil, and within this pitiful amount of soil, a small sprout was trying hard to germinate. Saying that it was a small seedling was a bit too much. It was clearly a seed that had just germinated. It had not fully grown yet, and only had the appearance of a tender bud. The green on the top was only the size of a grain of rice. Regardless of its shape or aura, no matter which aspect one looked at it from, it didn't have the slightest relationship with a celestial peach. This is it. Yang Chun answered Granny Tianqin's question with certainty. He then said with a smile, "I'm sure that you've never seen a peach tree sprout before." Granny Tianqin had indeed never seen a peach tree sprout before, so she understood most of it with just a single sentence. This time, they had come to find the immortal peach, and this immortal peach should have already transformed into a sprout of a peach tree, which was the seedling in front of them. And Yang Chan relied on his keen eyes and vast knowledge to find this immortal peach in this strange place. How old are the immortal peaches? Granny Tianqin seemed to come to a realization and asked at the same time, "Immortal peach?" Yang Chun had a smile on his face as he shook his head like a rattle drum. "There are no more immortal peaches." "No more immortal peaches? Then what do we do?" Granny Tianqin's voice suddenly became anxious. She still needed the immortal peach to unlock her seal. Now that Yang Chun told her that there were no more immortal peaches, wouldn't her hopes be dashed again? "Don't worry." Yang Chun gave Granny Tianqin words of reassurance. His divine sense wrapped around Granny Tianqin, and the two of them disappeared in a flash. Immediately afterward, the two of them appeared in a world full of vitality. Beside the two of them, there were 2 more beauties. "My medicine garden," Yang Chun introduced, then pointed to the 2 beauties who suddenly appeared and said, "A Zhu and a Bai, tool spirits." Granny Tianqin let down her vigilance, but she still looked at a Zhu and a Bai with some surprise. She really didn't expect that there would be 2 such beautiful tool spirits in Yang Chen's medicine garden. Yang Chen carefully handed the small sprout in his hand to a Zhu. A Zhu squatted down in front of everyone and broke the small stone with a crack in it. Along with the black soil, the tender shoots were planted on the ground beneath their feet. A magical scene began to happen. As soon as it touched the ground, the small sprout began to change rapidly. The speed of the change was so fast that it made people stunned. In front of everyone, the small spore sprout, which was at most the size of a grain of rice, stretched out 2 leaves, and the branches began to pull out. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a small tree that was more than a foot tall and as thick as a willow branch. This was not the end. The small sapling continued to grow, like a balloon that was constantly expanding. In just a dozen breaths, it had become a huge peach tree that was 5 or 6 feet tall and had a crown of 10 feet in radius. Pink peach blossoms covered the entire peach tree, and the fragrance assailed their nostrils. It was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. The immortal peach tree is hundreds of thousands of years old. It has long taken root and sprouted into a peach tree. Yang Chun looked at the immortal peach tree and couldn't suppress the smile on his face. This is also good. In the future, if I want immortal peaches, I just need to wait for the peach tree to bear fruit. Granny Tianqin was completely relieved. As long as there was this peach tree, It was only a matter of time before her seal was undone. The strange thing was that she should be ecstatic, but she didn't feel that kind of joy in her heart. Instead, there was a kind of apprehension. She didn't know what kind of face was under her seal. Granny Tianqin, who had never seen what she looked like, was extremely worried. What if the person under her seal was an old granny without salt? At this moment, her peak earth immortal cultivation couldn't make her feel relieved. Her heart was stuck in her throat, and she couldn't let it go. At this time, even if Li Cheng said that she was beautiful, and Yang Chan said that she was an outstanding beauty, they couldn't make Granny Tianqin worry. Aju, this is yours. Yang Chan didn't provoke Granny Tianqin and said to Aju. Aju's body was a peach tree, and this immortal peach tree was of the same genus. As long as Aju could fully integrate with it, her improvement would be just around the corner. Aju was so happy that she didn't know how to express it. From a moment she saw the immortal peach tree, she knew that this was prepared by Yang Chen for her. Finding immortal peaches for Granny Tianqin was just on the way. Yang Chen had never forgotten the two sisters, Aju and Abai. What should we do with those three masters? Granny Tianqin finally recovered and forced herself not to think about her appearance. We can't just ignore them, right? Chapter 1729. With the immortal peach tree in hand, Granny Tianqin's anxiety had subconsciously lessened. At this moment, she actually had the mind to care about the three sky immortal experts. The three experts definitely did not have a good impression of Yang Chen and Granny Tianqin. This was obvious. The reason why they were trapped by the flag array instead of killing them was not because they were soft-hearted, but because they wanted to obtain more information about the cave abode. Therefore, no matter what method Granny Tianqin used to deal with the three of them, Yang Chen would not have any psychological burden. He was now a little curious. How would the rumored unreasonable Granny Tianqin deal with the three of them? One must know that the cave abode could only be entered and not exited. Strictly speaking, it could only be entered and not exited. Yang Chen did not know when he would be able to break the seal, but he was sure that Granny Tianqin would not be able to break it at this moment. So how would she deal with it? What do you plan to do? Yang Chen asked curiously. He was really curious. I'll listen to you. To Yang Chen's surprise, Granny Tianqin actually lowered her head and gave him such an answer, almost causing Yang Chen to stumble and fall to the ground. Was the person in front of him really the Granny Tianqin who was rumored to be cruel and unreasonable, not Yang Chen's little wife? Thinking back, Granny Tianqin had shown Yang Chen many times along the way, whether intentionally or unintentionally. At the beginning, Yang Chen thought that he was the key to unlocking Tianqin's seal, but now that he had the immortal peach, it seemed that before the seal was unlocked, he was still the key. Thinking of this, Yang Chen's heart calmed down. Who cared what the rumors were about Granny Tianqin, as long as she acted like a lady in front of him? In the world of cultivators, if one did not have a close relationship or a close friend, who would care about others? I'm curious, if you really want to deal with them, what method do you plan to use? Yang Chen asked, then immediately explained, don't misunderstand. I'm really curious. This cave abode can only be entered and not exited. If you don't go in, how are you going to deal with them? If you go in, he didn't even need to ask to know how he would come out after going in. I can't go in, but my music can. Granny Tianqin smiled proudly. My sound of slaughter is much more powerful in a sealed space. Even if they are heaven immortals, they can't come out. They can only be attacked by me. As long as I persevere, they will only become targets for me to sharpen my music. His words made Yang Chen admire him greatly. Old Lady Tianqin had a very clear understanding of herself. She also understood her own strengths and weaknesses. Such a place. Even Yang Chen had not thought about how to deal with it, but Old Lady Tianqin had already seen the advantages for herself. What a pity. If no one knew about this place, I could have stayed here for hundreds of years, thinking of a way to refine the abode, and at the same time sharpening my music. Granny Tianqin said with some regret, I'm just afraid that their disciples have already found out. When the news is leaked, it will definitely attract many experts. In this regard, Yang Chen was deeply convinced. This world didn't lack arrogant cultivators. Things that others couldn't do didn't mean they couldn't. Everyone thought they were the main character of the world. Therefore, even if others couldn't come out, they didn't necessarily think they couldn't come out either. When the time came, this place would definitely be very lively. He rubbed his chin and thought about it. If Granny Tianqin's method could be realized, it would indeed be of great help to him. Since Granny Tianqin was brought here by Big Brother Li Cheng, then she shouldn't be an outsider. If there were benefits, of course, he should let his own people go first. Easy. Yang Chun casually snapped his fingers and immediately attracted a burning gaze from Granny Tianqin. Yang Chun felt very uncomfortable being stared at like this by Granny Tianqin. At this point, it wasn't time to keep her in suspense. Yang Chun waved his hand, and the two left the herb garden, appearing in the valley in front of the abode. The valley was still the same. Nothing had changed. The only difference was that there was a fist-sized hole in a rock at the foot of the mountain. The stone wall was still transparent. Standing outside, one could clearly see the situation inside, but it seemed that the people inside couldn't see outside. The three people inside were still searching for the secret of the abode and didn't have time to look outside. The three of them were very confident in the expert's flag formation and felt that Yang Chun and Granny Tianqin wouldn't be able to escape. Since you can't refine it in a short time, then bring it back and slowly refine it. Yang Chun very irresponsibly said to Granny Tianqin, "Bring it back? Refine it?" Granny Tianqin almost went crazy. This abode was so spacious, even with 3 heaven immortal experts inside. Looking at the situation inside, it should be at least tens of thousands of miles wide. Bringing it back just like that? Was this a joke? How? Granny Tianqin wasn't an ignorant person. It wasn't that she hadn't heard of abodes that could be carried on one's body. She had even heard of abodes that were even bigger than this one. However, those were magic treasures that the owner of the abode had refined. Before refining them, how could something tens of thousands of miles wide be taken away just like that? It wasn't like it was a small toy. Even without looking at its size, just the weight alone wasn't something an ordinary person could bear. Yang Chun smiled and didn't answer. He just released his divine sense and began to explore the space of the abode. This abode was refined by South Pole Immortal Wang's Cicadere. From Yang Chun and Granny Tianqin's current point of view, it only occupied the size of the mountain in front of them. At most, it was only 100 miles wide. No matter what, it couldn't be called big. Granny Tianqin could also see this, but she was not as sure as Yang Chun. 100 miles was not something a single person could control. What's more, the real cave was more than 10,000 miles in radius. Even 3 sky immortals combined would not be able to bear the weight of the cave. Let alone 3 experts. Even 30 experts wouldn't be able to lift it. Yang Chun was just one person, and he was only a 3rd stage human immortal. It wasn't that Granny Tianqin looked down on Yang Chun. It was just that with this kind of cultivation, no matter how deep his heart was, there was only so much he could do. However, from their interactions these days, Yang Chun really wasn't someone who spoke without thinking. Granny Tianqin's eyebrows were already tightly knitted together. No matter how she thought about it, she still couldn't figure out how Yang Chun could take away such a huge abode. Could he really do it? Chapter 1730. Yang Chun didn't give Granny Tianqin the opportunity to lift a mountain with one hand. Now that the immortal peach tree was in his hands, the rest were just minor details. Going back to help Granny Tianqin unlock the seal was the most important thing. Yang Chun didn't dare to delay the matter of Big Brother Li Cheng's guidance. Another important reason was that Granny Tianqin was famous. Although it was Big Brother Li Cheng's guidance, Yang Chun still couldn't completely trust her. The yellow turban strongman body refining technique could be regarded as a small foundation for Yang Chun. Yang Chun wouldn't easily show it to a stranger he just met, even if the stranger was a beautiful woman after the seal was unlocked. Yang Chun's right hand gently waved. In Granny Tianqin's eyes, a huge black hole seemed to appear in the sky. The black hole was thousands of miles wide. The feeling of covering the sky in an instant made Granny Tianqin jump in fright. Fortunately, the darkness was only for a moment, and then the sky was restored. It almost made people think that it was an illusion. Granny Tianqing, of course, knew that it wasn't an illusion. How could a peak Earth immortal expert be covered by an illusion? Whether it was her eyes or divine sense, they clearly told her that the huge black hole that just appeared was not an illusion. The most direct evidence was the stone wall that was not far in front of her, together with the huge mountain behind it, and even the endless mountain range. Thousands of miles of stone mountains all disappeared without a trace after the black hole flashed. Where the mountain range originally was, there was only a huge pit that stretched for thousands of miles. The pit was so deep, it was hundreds of miles deep, and in some places you could even see fiery red magma gushing out. In just the blink of an eye, an area of several thousand miles had disappeared without a trace. What kind of powerful being was this? Even the experienced and knowledgeable Granny Tianqing was shocked by the facts in front of her. She couldn't close her mouth. Let's go. If there's anything, we'll talk about it when we get back. Yang Chun waited for Grandma Tianqing to be shocked, and when she began to return to her senses, he lightly said. Granny Tianqing replied, as if she was sleepwalking. Afterwards, she slowly flew up with Yang Chun like a tail, completely forgetting about directions. Only after flying for several thousand kilometers did Granny Tianqing slowly return to her senses. However, her eyes were still wide open. Looking at Yang Chun, who was effortlessly flying on his sword, she suddenly became a little crazy. She grabbed Yang Chun's arm and kept asking, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" Yang Chun turned around and smiled. He pulled his arm out of Granny Tianqing's grasp and said, "Of course I did. I've said it before, we'll bring the cave back." The huge black hole, just now, was naturally the mouth of the Earth Dragon on Yang Chen's right arm that acted as a bracelet. The tens of thousands of miles long Earth Dragon returned to its original shape. When it opened its mouth, it was also tens of thousands of miles wide. The mouth just now was only half opened. If the entire body of the Earth Dragon appeared, it would definitely be earth-shattering. Therefore, Yang Chun only let the Earth Dragon show a bit of its power and only its mouth. Even so, Granny Tianqing, the only witness of the peak Earth Immortal, had already turned into a little girl because of the shock. Granny Tianqing was almost going crazy. A mountain range of thousands of miles was taken away, just like that. Was this something a third-stage human immortal junior could do? However, the situation just now didn't seem like a super magic treasure. What was it? Granny Tianqing actually didn't see it clearly. A peak earthly immortal expert actually didn't know how a grade 3 human immortal junior did it. If this news were to spread, he would be laughed at by countless people. What a joke! An Earth immortal expert must be joking, right? However, Granny Tianqing knew that the scene, just now, was not a joke. It was an ironclad fact. The cave that 3 heaven immortals and herself didn't know how to deal with was solved by Yang Chun with one hand. It really was a hand. Didn't you see that Yang Chun only waved his right hand? Yang Chun's right hand had nothing but a simple and unadorned bracelet. She really couldn't see what kind of power it was. In other words, if she had any evil intentions towards Yang Chun would probably only need to wave his right hand to solve it. As soon as this thought appeared, Granny Tianqing felt a jolt in her heart. She originally thought that Yang Chun only had outstanding alchemy skills. Now, it seemed that many people didn't realize how powerful Yang Chun was. Thinking of this, some inhumane grievances that had been accumulating in her heart disappeared without a trace. Her thoughts also became much clearer. If I were you, I would consider where to put the cave. Yang Chun smiled calmly and said to Granny Tianqing, although the cave only covers a few hundred miles, before you refine it, you still need to put it in a safe place. My heavenly Zither Valley. Granny Tianqing suddenly stopped after saying those words and did not continue. If it was in the past, Skychin Valley was naturally very safe. However, with this cave and the 3 heaven immortals inside, it might not be so. Why? Is it inconvenient? Yang Chun looked at Granny Tianqing thoughtfully. He also understood Granny Tianqing's hesitation and immediately said, "If you are willing, then put it in Chunyang Palace first. or find a place in hatred-parting sea first? We'll do as you say. Granny Tianqin's words made Yang Chen stunned. It can't be. A famous Earth Immortal expert is so obedient. This obviously has nothing to do with me being able to break the seal. I don't know how Brotherly Ching taught her. Is there any condition that I don't know? Shaking his head, Yang Chen no longer guessed and reached out to call Granny Tianqin into the flying shuttle. The most important thing now was to rush back to Chunyang Palace as fast as possible and then break the seal on Granny Tianqin. No one knew if the fickle Granny Tianqin would go crazy while waiting. If that really happened, Yang Chen would want to cry, but have no tears. Granny Tianqin was very approving of this. It has always been her dream to be able to break the seal as soon as possible. Since Yang Chen had this idea, of course she would raise both hands in approval. A Zhu, give birth to a celestial peach. On the way, Yang Chen didn't forget to tell a Zhu that the key to breaking the seal was the celestial peach. Yang Chen would use it when he returned. When Yang Chen and Granny Tianqin returned to Chunyang Palace, a Zhu had already prepared a celestial peach according to Yang Chen's instructions. Chapter 1731. How do I use this? Eat it. Granny Tianqin asked curiously as she held a red peach that was almost the size of a human head in her hand. She smelled the pure fragrance of the peach and resisted the urge to swallow it. In the place that Yang Chen had carefully prepared, there was no one else but Yang Chen and Granny Tianqin. In fact, Granny Tianqin did not realize that she was in the Dragon Palace. Yang Chen knew that Granny Tianqin had the fire spirit root, so he specially prepared to break the seal in the Fire Dragon Palace. There would be too much of a commotion when the seal was broken. Other than the Dragon Palace, Yang Chen did not think that the small mountain gate of Chunyang Palace could withstand it. It was very rare that Yang Chen did not directly answer Granny Tianqin's question. Instead, he silently thought for a moment and looked at Granny Tianqin, as if he wanted to say something but stopped. This made Granny Tianqin feel that something was wrong. Could it be that there was an accident during the process of breaking the seal? If I die, then so be it. After struggling for a while, Yang Chen finally made up his mind and said, "In fact, the process of breaking the seal will be a little awkward." Awkward? Granny Tianqin was startled and immediately realized something. She forced a smile and said, "Don't tell me you want me to take off my veil?" "Sure, no problem." Granny Tianqin answered quickly, but Yang Chen did not feel relieved. Instead, he let out a long sigh and said with a bitter smile, "It's not just your veil. You also know that your face is not the only thing that is sealed." Granny Tianqin, who was notorious, was by no means a stupid person. She understood Yang Chen's meaning almost instantly. Even though she had already stabilized her mind, she still let out a low scream at this moment. She turned around and ran, disregarding everything else. She went into a small room at the side and closed the door with a bang. Then, there was no more sound. Yang Chen didn't urge much. For this kind of thing, Yang Chen couldn't make a decision for Grandma Tianqin. The only one who could make the decision was Granny Tianqin herself. Yang Chen could only wait for now. After some time, the door of the small room was gently opened. Granny Tianqin slowly walked out with a veil covering her face. She looked at Yang Chen and slowly walked to Yang Chen. "Is there no other way?" Granny Tianqin seemed to be struggling and asked a question that seemed to solve the problem. "This seal of yours is at least at the level of a perfected golden immortal. In other words, it requires at least a perfected golden immortal expert to unseal it quietly." Yang Chen explained to Granny Tianqin, "I don't know who put the seal on you, but it's difficult to find a great principal golden immortal in the spiritual world." As he said this, Yang Chen shook his head, and the last word was said with certainty. She finally understood why Li Cheng made that strange request when he guided her to Yang Chen's place. Now she finally understood why Li Cheng made that strange request when he guided her to Yang Chen's place. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed that Li Cheng did not take advantage of her at that time. He was really putting himself in her shoes and thinking for her. How long will it take? Granny Tianqin seemed to have given up her last effort. She clearly understood the difficulty of finding a perfected golden immortal in the spiritual realm. She could only accept the reality. Based on our cultivation, it will take at least half a year. Yang Chun gave an affirmative answer this time, and then added, "There's no other way. My cultivation is too low. I don't think you will accept a few more helpers, right?" "No." Granny Tianqin seemed to be provoked by something. She whispered, "Just you alone is enough." With another helper, Granny Tianqin did not even know if she could accept telling him about this. Just thinking about it was enough to make her so shy that she could no longer raise her head. Then, Yang Qin also sighed slightly and asked, "When are you ready? We will start. There's a big bed in that room. Call me when you are ready." Granny Tianqin did not say a word. Her footsteps were almost hesitant as she moved towards the room. After a long time, she disappeared from the room. After a long time, Yang Chun heard a barely audible voice from that direction. "Done." Yang Chun stood where he was, shook his head, took a few deep breaths, and then strode into the room. Even the future fairy Tianqin had let go. As a man, what could he not let go of? The room was very big. The one Yang Chun prepared was originally big. The bed was big enough to fit 4 people. On the pure white bed sheets, there was a naked body that had absolutely nothing to do with pleasing to the eye. The owner of the body had her eyes closed. Her body was trembling nonstop. Hearing Yang Chen's footsteps, the trembling became even more intense. Yang Chen could swear on his heart demon that he was not interested in Granny Tianqin's body at all. It had to be said that Granny Tianqin's father was really protective of her. With Granny Tianqin's current appearance, let alone people who would violate her, Yang Chun even suspected that cultivators wouldn't have the thought of violating her. The process might hurt and itch, but no matter what happens, you can't move around, Yang Chun warned. Then he saw the woman on the bed, nod slightly and said, "Relax." Yang Chen's divine sense began to affect the woman's body. Granny Tianqin's entire body floated in the air. Granny Tianqin's closed eyelids kept trembling. She was forcibly suppressing her excitement. In Yang Chen's hand, the immortal peach was lightly pierced into a small hole on the top tip. Then, the pure and fresh peach juice dripped from the small hole onto Grandma Tianqin's body. Under the control of Yang Chen's divine sense, the peach juice was evenly distributed on Granny Tianqin's body. Including her hair, there was not a single place that was missed. With this kind of operation, it was no wonder that Yang Chun asked Grandma Tianqin to remove all her clothes. She could only blame her irresponsible father for such a perverted seal. With Yang Chen's current cultivation, undoing the seal with the immortal peach was already his limit. If he wanted to save face during the process, it was simply impossible. A white flame appeared around Granny Tianqin's body. It began to roast her body in a unique way. Yang Chun did not stay idle. The peach pit was forcibly peeled off by Yang Chun. The peach kernel was sent into Granny Tianqin's mouth. The rest was ground into powder and evenly distributed to the white flames around Granny Tianqin's body. From the perspective of alchemy, at this moment, Yang Chun was clearly refining a human-shaped medicinal pill with his bare hands. Chapter 1732. The white flame was obviously the white fire seed that Li Cheng had given to Yang Chun. When Granny Tianqin said that Big Brother Li Cheng had told her to come here, and after determining that it was a super seal, Yang Chun knew that he had to use this fire seed. In the current situation, to be precise, Yang Chun was refining pills. However, it was not suitable for refining pills in a cauldron, but by hand. The main ingredient of the pill was the celestial peach, and there were dozens of supplementary ingredients that needed to be added later. The one who was taking medicine was naturally Granny Tianqin. Of course, the situation was a bit special, and it was not the usual way of taking pills by mouth. The process of refining pills was also the process of taking the medicine, and it was taking the medicine directly on the surface of the body. There was no other way. This seal covered the entire body, and it required the entire body to be stimulated by the life essence to be opened. Yang Chun was no longer as embarrassed as he was at the beginning. Once he was in a good mood, Yang Chun was a qualified alchemist with no distractions in his heart. After feeling the abnormality in her body, Granny Tianqin was no longer as shy as before. She even secretly opened her eyes and glanced at Yang Chun, who was working. "Open your eyes, or else the color of your eyes will not be removed." Yang Chun, who was completely focused on Granny Tianqin, naturally noticed her small movements. Seeing that she was no longer as trembling as before, he casually said this. It must be said that a woman's pursuit of beauty surpassed everything else. Hearing Yang Chun say that closing her eyes might affect the color of her eyes, Granny Tianqin immediately opened her eyes wide, no longer feeling embarrassed. Every once in a while, Yang Chun would throw a material into the flame. The entire process of throwing the medicinal ingredients took a whole month to complete. What followed was a long refining process. Granny Tianqin felt as if her body was absorbing the life essence of the celestial peach like crazy. She could even clearly feel the life essence drilling in her body bit by bit. The strange thing was that the life essence seemed to be absorbed by something as soon as it entered her skin, and not a single bit entered her body. Gradually, Granny Tianqin felt her skin heat up. It was just as Yang Chun had said at the beginning. First it hurt, then it itched. When it hurt, Granny Tianqin wanted to faint. When it itched, it was even worse. Sometimes, Granny Tianqin wished she could die immediately. Only then would the pain be alleviated. After who knew how long, Granny Tianqin vaguely discovered that her skin seemed to be separating from her flesh, bit by bit, piece by piece, leaving her body. This feeling caused Granny Tianqin to be pleasantly surprised. She understood that this was most likely the process of the seal being broken by Yang Chen's refinement. Every time her skin peeled off, it meant that her seal had been broken a little. That joy made Granny Tianqin drown in it, unable to free herself. Yang Chen was also aware of the process of this change. In fact, he could clearly see the soft shell as thin as a cicada's wing being lifted from Granny Tianqin's body, revealing the white and delicate skin below. As more and more of the soft shells left Granny Tianqin's body, the body in front of Yang Chun began to blossom with astonishing beauty. The entire process was like an ugly caterpillar turning into the most beautiful butterfly. It could be said to be a perfect transformation. When the last and most difficult piece was separated from Granny Tianqin's eyes, Yang Chun waved his hand, and the white flame wrapped around Granny Tianqin's body disappeared without a trace like magic. Yang Chen's consciousness relaxed, and Granny Tianqin's naked body slowly fell onto the large bed below. Yang Chun very gracefully covered Grandma Tianqin with a thin quilt, and then said with a smile, "Well, the seal is unlocked." With that, Yang Chun didn't wait for Granny Tianqin to say anything else and left the room. However, Yang Chun had already prepared several large mirrors in the room, enough for Granny Tianqin to see her body from all angles. Not even 3 breaths after walking out of the room, Yang Chun heard Granny Tianqin's ecstatic screams. It was completely different from the hoarse and unpleasant voice from before. This voice was as tender as the most cheerful nightingale. Very quickly, the screams turned into sobs. This cry seemed to vent all of Granny Tianqin's grievances in her life. The more she cried, the louder she became. Later on, Granny Tianqin's cultivation was even mixed in. She was a master of music, and with her own emotions to vent, it directly made Yang Chun, who thought that he could completely ignore it, almost unable to control himself. The kind of grievance in her voice, the kind of humiliation, the kind of pitiful. Even Yang Chun had an impulse to go in and make her happy. As for how to make her happy, Yang Chun felt that it didn't matter, anything would do. Fortunately, the 3 purity secret art was really not an ordinary secret art. Yang Chun just had this idea, and immediately there was a chill in his mind, and he calmed down instantly. Then he immediately felt a burst of fear. Sure enough, she was worthy of being a fierce fairy in his previous life. Just such a small venting was so powerful. If she really attacked with all her strength, maybe even a fairy immortal master would not be her opponent. For more than an hour, Granny Tianqin spent it in intermittent crying. Yang Chen had been outside and did not go in to interfere. At this time, it was better to let Granny Tianqin adjust herself. Finally hearing the footsteps of Granny Tianqin coming out, Yang Chen's eyes were facing the door, looking at it with some expectation. To be honest, before Yang Chen had been struggling to control the unlocking of the seal, he had not really appreciated the beauty of Granny Tianqin. Now was the first time that Granny Tianqin had shown her most beautiful face, and Yang Chen was honored to be the first audience. A beautiful woman appeared in front of Yang Chen's eyes. In a short time, Granny Tianqin did not forget to decorate her makeup, wearing a colorful dress that Yang Chen had never seen before, and appeared in front of Yang Chen. This! Yang Chen directly took a breath of cold air, then stood in place, staring at Granny Tianqin's eyes could no longer move. Yang Chen's performance was the best praise. Granny Tianqin, no. Fairy Tianqin's face suddenly bloomed with a beautiful flower, as if the sky had suddenly lit up. Unfortunately, the beautiful time was too short. Yang Chen, who was appreciating the beauty of Fairy Tianqin, suddenly felt a familiar aura and was suddenly awakened. No way. Yang Chen looked up at the sky, looked at the gathering dark clouds, and couldn't help but cry out. This is Heaven's Tribulation. Chapter 1733. The heavenly zither fairy was originally at the peak of the earth immortal realm. Over the years, because of her appearance, her mood was depressed, forming a lingering, eccentric character. Logically speaking, this kind of character was not very suitable for cultivation. Because it was always negative emotions, it was easy for her to be possessed by the devil. According to common sense, the heavenly zither fairy situation was very suitable for a devil cultivator of a certain sect. However, the heavenly zither fairy cultivated the most orthodox Taoist cultivation method, and her whole body's aura was also Taoist aura. From this point of view, Yang Chen could only sigh that it was comfortable to have a backer. There was no need to worry too much at all. In fact, in Yang Chen's memory, the heavenly zither fairy cultivated step by step all the way to the immortal realm, and then unlocked the seal. Today, the seal was completely unlocked, and her appearance returned to normal. Whether it was Li Cheng's beauty or Yang Chen's beauty, it was not an exaggeration to describe it. Under the guidance of this great happiness, the depression in heavenly zither fairy's heart was gone, and her state of mind naturally improved. Then, she drove her own spiritual power to break through the threshold. It could be said that it was very normal for the heavenly zither fairy to trigger the heavenly tribulation now. It was the most appropriate to describe it as a matter of course. The problem was that the Chunyang Palace did not have the ability to resist the heavenly tribulation, especially the heavenly tribulation of the earth immortal level. If the 99 earthly immortal tribulations came down, the newly built Chunyang Palace would definitely be directly turned into ashes. Yang Chen's mind went blank, and he almost went berserk. Fortunately, at the critical moment, he suddenly remembered that Old Bug was in charge of the Chunyang Palace, and he had the Earth Dragon and 2 supreme mystic immortals by his side. It should be more than enough to protect the Chunyang Palace. At this moment, he immediately communicated with Old Bug and Earth Dragon to arrange protection matters. The heavenly zither fairy also understood that she triggered the heavenly tribulation when she was in a good mood. Now that her thoughts were clear, she was full of confidence, and her foundation was rich. There was no doubt that she would pass the heavenly tribulation. But looking at Yang Chen's expression, she immediately realized that it was not appropriate for her to pass the heavenly tribulation here. So she hurriedly said goodbye and was about to leave. Don't, right here. Yang Chen suddenly stopped Fairy Tianqin and explained at the same time, my Chunyang Palace's accumulation is still shallow, and I have never had the opportunity to observe the divine tribulation in the spiritual realm. Please enlighten me. Yang Chen's words were extremely sincere, causing Fairy Lyra to be very surprised that Yang Chen was so considerate of the sect, even to the point of destroying the sect. But on second thought, the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace was just an earth god level spirit vein. It was built less than 200 years ago. Compared to the tribulation of an earth god expert, it was not a big deal if it was destroyed. If it were Fairy Tianqin herself, she would not care. The only thing they had to consider was the interference during their tribulation. Generally speaking, if they weren't close to someone they trusted, they definitely wouldn't want a stranger by their side during their tribulation. Fairy Heavenly Zither was the same. She also had this concern, but when she heard Yang Chen's request, she nodded. Someone was crossing the tribulation. This was a great opportunity for the disciples of Chunyang Palace. When Yang Chen came out of the Dragon Palace, he found that almost all the disciples in Chunyang Palace had come out, and all of them were staring at the tribulation clouds in the sky with excitement. What surprised Yang Chen was that Ho Yun, the old tree demon, Shi Kuei, and Xie Sha, who he didn't know where they went to experience before, also appeared in the crowd. Retreat 30 miles immediately. Yang Chen's voice sounded in everyone's ears, and everyone did not hesitate to obey and quickly left. As for the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace, not to mention that Yang Chen didn't care, even the head of the palace didn't put it in his eyes. Everyone knew that this was just an earth god's spirit vein, and Yang Chen had the immortal spirit vein in his hands. This was just a temporary mountain gate. At this time, the tribulation clouds had completely covered the sky. The people of Chunyang Palace stayed 30 miles away, staring curiously and expectantly at the tribulation clouds in the sky, while guessing who was crossing the tribulation. Old Bug's figure once again turned into countless celestial eating bugs, wrapping the people of Chunyang Palace in it. This distance was actually a bit dangerous for the Earth God tribulation, but if they wanted to see it more clearly, they had to bear the risk. Boom! The first tribulation began to fall. For the bumpkins of Chunyang Palace, it could be said that it was an eye-opener. The tribulation of the spiritual realm was not simply the wind, fire, and thunder alone, but each tribulation contained the power of the 5 elements of yin and yang. Just looking at the power of the falling tribulation, it could make the human immortals of Chunyang Palace tremble with fear. If it was them, could they withstand such power? This is the Earth God tribulation. Don't belittle yourself. Watch the ceremony carefully. Yang Chen's voice sounded when everyone was a little shocked and desperate, and it calmed everyone's heart. Only an Earth God tribulation could have such power, and for a moment, everyone's worries were left behind. The way the Heavenly Zither fairy crossed the tribulation was very special. She sat cross-legged in the air, facing the tribulation. There was a zither on her lap. The fiery red zither was carved with a lifelike phoenix, which was the Heavenly Zither fairy's natal magic treasure, the celestial phoenix zither. Every time a tribulation fell, the Heavenly Zither fairy did not resist, nor did she dissolve it. She just faced the tribulation and played the zither. The tribulation entered the Heavenly Zither fairy's body without resistance, and then disappeared without a trace in the sound of the zither. There was neither a thrilling danger nor a gorgeous magic treasure. The Heavenly Zither fairy seemed to be playing the zither quietly in the sky, and then the tribulation blasted into the Heavenly Zither fairy's body, and then there was nothing else. Below the tribulation clouds was Chunyang Palace, and between the tribulation clouds and Chunyang Palace, there was a Heavenly Zither fairy, a beautiful woman who was as beautiful as a flower and as beautiful as the moon, forcibly separated the two. Above was the tumbling tribulation clouds, but below was the calm Chunyang Palace, where not even a tile was broken. Between the movement and the stillness, a zither song that seemed like a raging wave, but sounded as calm as the deep sea reverberated between heaven and earth. The people on the ground looked at this earth-shattering scene and listened to this quiet and surging zither song. Their eyes and hearts were filled with the indescribably beautiful figure, and for a moment they were all infatuated. 99 tribulations, from beginning to end, added up to only an hour. During this hour, no one who was watching thought of moving. They all stood motionless in the same place, watching, listening, feeling, experiencing, and thinking. In a flash, the clouds dissipated, and the sky became clear again. The blue sky was as pure as a gem, without a trace of impurity. The fairy-like woman in the air calmly put away the zither, and her figure, like a fairy flying in the sky, slowly descended and stopped in front of Yang Chen. Chapter 1734. The people in Chunyang Palace were still immersed in the scene, just now, and could not extricate themselves for a long time. The earth immortal tribulation could be so simple. Those who have insights go to retreat. Those who don't have insights do what they should do. Yang Chen's voice rang in everyone's ears, waking everyone up. No one would think that there was anything wrong with Yang Chen shouting like this. He shouted with a clear conscience, as if it should be like this in Chunyang Palace. Didn't they see that even the master of the palace and several core elders took it for granted? Old gay, old ho, shike, siesha, wait for me to settle the ferry. I'll come back to find you to fight. In the front, he woke up the disciples of Chunyang Palace. In the back, Yang Chun left a sentence for the old tree demon Ho Yun and the others. I haven't beaten people for a long time. My hands are itchy. Hearing Yang Chen's words, the old tree demon Ho Yun, Shikoe, Siesha, and a few others were beaming with joy. These guys who came from the monster race. It was simply nonsense to talk to them about peace and quiet. The most suitable way for them to cultivate was to go out and fight. Yang Chun shouting like this was also a good idea. Is this how you communicate with them on weekdays? Tianqin Fairy asked with a strange look. Who Yang Chun was shouting at, with Tianqin Fairy's current cultivation base, she could naturally distinguish it clearly, not to mention that Yang Chun did not intend to hide it from her. Almost. A few of them don't fight for a few days, and their hands are itchy. They always have to be beaten up every few days, and they will be honest. Yang Chen replied with a big stab. He did not feel embarrassed at all. How are you going to settle me? Tianqin Fairy was now as beautiful as a fairy, and even the slightly teasing and curious inquiry had a kind of amazing beauty. Her look seemed to have suddenly become a little girl, and there was no longer the mature and prudent look that she had when she claimed to be a grandmother. Yang Chun was the young palace master of Chunyang Palace. No one would find it strange for him to order anyone in Chunyang Palace. Even if it was the head of the palace, there were most people, that is to say, Yang Chun was favored by the head of the palace, there would not be any gossip. But now it was obvious that Fairy Tianqin was not a disciple of Chunyang Palace, and Yang Chun actually said that he wanted to help her settle down. This time, Fairy Tianqin asked with a smile and a teasing tone, but there was no sense of blame. If Yang Chen's answer was not good, who knew if Fairy Lyra would turn hostile on the spot? A mere human immortal kid actually dared to boast about helping a heaven immortal senior settle down. If outsiders were to find out about this, there was no telling how many of them would rush to Yang Chen's face and scold Yang Chun for not knowing the gravity of the situation. But Yang Chun didn't feel embarrassed at all. He looked natural, as if he was arranging his own family, which made people feel that it was a matter of course. This made the heavenly zither fairy more and more curious. Don't you still have an immortal's cave and 3 targets with me? Yang Chun smiled and replied, I help you find a good place, safe, comfortable, full of spiritual power, and there are masters to spar with. You should thank me. Fairy Tianqin remembered at this time that when she was looking for the immortal peach, Yang Chen also helped her bring back an immortal's cave with a radius of tens of thousands of miles. He had not yet settled down, and Yang Chun had already said that he would arrange it for her. Now that Yang Chen did this, there was really no problem. Fairy Tianqin did not have any resistance in her heart. Is there really such a good place? Fairy Tianqin didn't believe it. She had been in the spiritual world for 2,000 years. She had been operating for many years, but she had only made a fierce name for Grandma Tianqin. The place that really made her feel safe was not even her own lair. Chunyang Palace has only been established for less than 200 years. Yang Chun dared to say that there was such a good place? Anyway, Fairy Tianqin would never believe it. Let's go, I'll take you to see it. Yang Chun reached out and invited. After the heavenly zither fairy thanked him, she followed into Yang Chen's shuttle. She didn't know why. Before Fairy Tianqin unlocked the seal, the two were still a bit unruly. Now that the heavenly zither fairy had restored her beauty, and Yang Chun had also seen all parts of the heavenly zither fairy's body, but there was a little more transparent barrier between the two, and they were a lot more polite when talking and doing things. The speed of the shuttle was very fast. A few days later, Yang Chun took Fairy Tianqin to the Sea of Hatred. He took Fairy Tianqin to the Conch Underwater Mansion. Of course, the Conch Underwater Mansion was relatively safe, except for Yang Chun, the palace master, and Wang Yong, who controlled the token. Even Long Xian couldn't find where it was. What's more, there was an 8th grade fairy immortal master, Fatty Jing. If Fairy Tianqin was counted, 2 fairy immortal masters plus a natural immortal's cave was not safe enough. Then there was no safer place in the Sunset Rock, Linyang River, and the Sea of Hatred. Fatty Jing was now enjoying himself very much. There were no longer 2 chefs serving him, but more than 60, all of whom were spiritual in cooking among the natives of the spiritual world. Basically, Fatty Jing did not ask for anything in return from the human immortal masters who had passed the wind tribulation here. The only requirement was that if they found a good chef, they would bring him a few delicious meals. Those guys spared no effort to implement this small request of Senior Jing, and each of them tried their best to find a lot. Of course, in the end, only these 60 or so chefs could satisfy Fatty Jing. However, even so, Fatty Jing could not forget the delicious food cooked by Gong Sunling. Even if it was a simple dish that went with wine, the taste was much better than those famous chefs that could barely satisfy Fatty Jing. Perhaps the reason why famous chefs were not real famous chefs was that they had not yet understood what it meant to return to nature and what it meant to do it wholeheartedly. You're here? Who is this? When Fatty Jing saw a figure following behind Yang Chun, he was full of joy and thought it was Gong Sunling, but when he saw Fairy Tianqin, he suddenly felt a little resentful. Fairy Tianqin was already a fairy immortal, so naturally, she did not come here to face the tribulation, so it must be Yang Chun who came to find her. Fatty Jing was a lazy guy, but he was very smart, and he instantly began to guess the purpose of Yang Chun's visit. My friend wants to cultivate here for a period of time. Yang Chun also made it clear first, so as not to have any misunderstandings in the future. Can I borrow your place to quietly refine a cave house? What's in it for me? Fatty Jing and Yang Chun didn't have much politeness. They had big fat hands, and they directly asked for benefits. His forthright attitude made Heavenly Zither very dumbfounded. Most importantly, at this time, Fatty Jing did not put Fairy Tianqin's peerless appearance in his eyes at all. After the Heavenly Zither fairy restored her beauty, even Yang Chun had a moment of absent-mindedness. This was the first time he saw someone ignore her appearance. Chapter 1735. In front of a top foodie, no matter how beautiful a woman was, she couldn't compare to a bowl of fragrant braised pork. Fatty Jing's current situation was like this. Not to mention Fairy Tianqin. Even if all of Yang Chen's beautiful wives and concubines lined up to stand here, Fatty Jing would probably only see Gong Sunling. Nothing else. Gong Sunling was a top chef. Therefore, it was normal for Fairy Tianqin to be ignored at this time. Yang Chun had already expected this and didn't find it strange at all. It was precisely because of this that Yang Chun didn't have to worry about Fatty Jing having any other thoughts about Fairy Tianqin when he threw Fairy Tianqin into the Conch Underwater Mansion. Benefits? Yang Chun pondered for a moment and suddenly thought of something. He smiled and said, I'll give you a breath and chance. A breath? An opportunity? Not only was Fatty Jing scratching his head in confusion, but even Heavenly Zither Fairy was also puzzled. What kind of breath could be worth such a big favor? What kind of chance? Or rather, it's a chance for the two of you. Yang Chun didn't forget to pull Fairy Tianqin back at an appropriate time. No matter what, this was Fatty Jing's underwater mansion. As long as he was willing, anyone could be expelled at any time, anywhere. Even if Fatty Jing looked at Yang Chen's face, he would not do this. But if he wanted to make the Heavenly Zither Fairy uncomfortable, there was a way. To let the two of them live in harmony, they needed a harmonious atmosphere. To achieve this, they needed extremely effective communication. Fatty Jing, you've been stuck at the 8th stage of the Sky Immortal Realm for a long time, right? Yang Chen didn't answer directly, but suddenly asked. And it's been a long time. These days, I've found new happiness. I believe I'll be able to break through soon. Fatty Jing didn't hide his cultivation at all, and directly said it. The new happiness Jing who was talking about was naturally delicious food. In the past, he didn't know that there were such pleasures in the mortal world. After it was discovered by Yang Chun, it couldn't be stopped. Actually, Fatty Jing, happiness alone can't make you improve faster. Yang Chun shook his head slightly and said with a little regret, cultivation is an arduous process. Only by experiencing everything can one stand higher and see further. Yang Chun explained, making a poor man regard money as dirt and making a rich man think the same way are two completely different things. After saying this, Yang Chun didn't wait for Fatty Jing to understand and turned his head to Fairy Tianqin. Similarly, in cultivation, there are not only grievances, pain, humiliation, and violence. Happiness is equally important. The first half of Fairy Heavenly Zither's life, at least when she called herself Granny Heavenly Zither, was definitely not good. From the intense inferiority complex to the ridicule of others, none of them could make people happy. It could be said that Jinghu and Heavenly Zither Fairy were basically two people who were opposing each other. One was alone for thousands or even tens of thousands of years and could still be happy, while the other was also lonely and closed, but only grievances and pain. Both sides were extreme. You don't have to experience those pains, and you don't have to deliberately pursue happiness. As long as you communicate with each other, exchange with each other, and share your experiences and lessons with each other. Yang Chun said this, but his eyes were staring at the reactions of the two. In fact, putting aside their respective personalities and experiences, Fatty Jing and Fairy Heavenly Zither both had a common characteristic, and that was that they were closed off. Fatty Jing stayed alone in the conch underwater mansion. If he hadn't met Yang Chun, who knows how long he would have been lonely. In Fairy Heavenly Zither's previous life, where could she find someone to communicate with? Even if someone was willing to come to her, it was for Fairy Heavenly Zither's Zither songs, not to communicate with her. From the beginning to the end, Fairy Heavenly Zither's heart was closed. Even now, Yang Chun didn't know if her heart had opened even a little bit. Now that Fairy Heavenly Zither wanted to refine the cave mansion here, the two of them might have to spend a long time together, and this was the basis for communication. Fatty Jing's optimistic and cheerful personality and Fairy Heavenly Zither's negative and reclusive personality influenced each other, learning from each other's strengths to make up for each other's weaknesses. For the two of them, it was a good complement. They were both sky immortal experts, and they were very familiar with each other. From Yang Chen's words, the two of them could also guess each other's character. If they thought about it carefully, Yang Chen's words were very reasonable. Solitary yin does not grow. Solitary yang does not grow. The principle of cultivation was very clear. Of course, one could also become an expert by going to the extreme, but after all, it was not as good as being neutral and peaceful. This was the reason why high realms were called perfection and not sharpness. For a moment, the two of them were a little tempted. No one would reject the improvement of their own cultivation. Yang Chen's words were very reasonable. It seemed that the following days began to become a little more exciting. Yang Chun was very satisfied with the current results. In his heart, it was not necessarily without selfishness. Jing, who was now a person of Chunyang Palace, one of his own people. Fairy Heavenly Zither was the person who was guided by Big Brotherly Chung. Subconsciously, she was also one of his own people. For his own people, Yang Chun, of course, would try his best to avoid some bad things from happening. In his previous life, Fatty Jing was later captured alive and then occupied the underwater mansion. After thoroughly tasting the humiliation and pain of a loser, only then did he have the improvement of his realm. But even so, he had always been subservient to others and was commanded by others. Fairy Heavenly Zither was not much better. The fierce name of Granny Heavenly Zither had been in the immortal world. After the seal was unlocked, it slowly took thousands of years to become Fairy Heavenly Zither. How did a weak woman bear the pain? Now there was an opportunity for the two of them to make up for their shortcomings through mutual communication and subtly change some of their extreme personalities. For them, it was definitely a great thing. Yang Chun had already changed the trajectory of their cultivation, so there was no harm in modifying this trajectory to make it better. Of course, when Fairy Zhou is practicing the zither, Fatty Jing can also listen more. It will be of great benefit to you. Yang Chun snickered in his heart and gave Fairy Zhou a secretive look that she could understand. Then he said seriously, "There are many people outside who want to ask Fairy Zhou to play a song, but they can't. Fatty Jing, as long as you provide food and accommodation, you can listen whenever you want. It's a bargain for you." Another purpose of Fairy Heavenly Zither refining the cave was to use the 3 Heaven Immortal experts as targets to practice the zither. Now, there was an 8th grade Heaven Immortal expert as a target. How could she not be happy? This arrangement of Yang Chun was simply better than she had imagined. Fatty Jing smiled foolishly and nodded his head, as if he had already seen the glory of the future. Ever since he met Yang Chun, he had gained a lot of weight. Life was not an ordinary kind of beauty. Listening to Yang Chun would not be wrong. Chapter 1736. In fact, what Yang Chun said was the truth. Fairy Tianqin was not famous for killing people like flies, but for her zither songs. Her 3 best songs were Quiet Sound, Path of Slaughter, and Self-Cultivation Song. Amongst these 3 tunes, the Tranquil tune was capable of allowing one to comprehend the heavens and the earth in tranquility. The Tao of Slaughter was capable of causing one to be filled with lofty sentiments and killed decisively. And as for the Cultivation tune, it was capable of healing the hidden injuries within a cultivator's body, causing it to have boundless, miraculous effects. As long as one could calm down and listen to this song, it would not be a breakthrough in one's mental state, but it could strengthen one's body, heal internal injuries, or increase one's spiritual force and spiritual sense. This alone was enough to make countless people chase after it. If Fatty Jing could listen to these 3 songs often, it would definitely be a boundless benefit. Moreover, if he listened to the Path of Slaughter a lot, he would definitely be immune to the attacks of sound cultivators in the future. All right, what cave dwelling do you want to refine? Let me see if I can help. Fatty Jing was straightforward. As long as he agreed, he would immediately start. Yang Chen did not argue with him and directly asked the Earth Dragon to spit out the cave dwelling. The Earth Dragon had already digested all the rocks and soil around the cave dwelling, leaving only a bare cave dwelling. As soon as the cave dwelling appeared, it instantly occupied a huge space with a radius of hundreds of miles. Fortunately, the space of the underwater palace was large enough to accommodate a cave dwelling several times larger than this. The moment the Earth Dragon opened its mouth, Fatty Jing jumped in fright. Fairy Tianqin did not feel how powerful Di Long was, but being in the conch underwater palace, Jinghu's senses were countless times stronger than Fairy Tianqin's. He instantly felt the terror of the Earth Dragon. Similarly, Jinghu also found the source of the Big Mouth, a terrifying character that could make him, a Sky Immortal expert, tremble with fear, actually wrapped around Yang Chen's wrist and made an inconspicuous bracelet. How was this possible? But the truth was right in front of him. Jinghu had no choice but to believe it. When he looked at Yang Chen again, there was a bit more fear. It's nothing. He's just like you, a senior who likes peace and quiet and doesn't like to be disturbed. There's no need to make a fuss. Yang Chen saw a trace of fear in Jinghu's eyes. He didn't want his relationship with Jinghu to have many other things. After explaining a little, Jinghu felt relieved. Next, it was naturally Yang Chen who took Jinghu's place and brought Fairy Lyra to familiarize herself with the underwater mansion's environment. He even brought her to the Heavenly Tribulation Room to have a look. As for getting more familiar with it in the future, that was Fatty Jing's problem. What surprised Yang Chen was that as soon as she entered the Heavenly Tribulation Room, Heavenly Zither Fairy triggered the Heavenly Tribulation without any warning. This room could only trigger the Lightning Tribulation, Flame Tribulation, and Black Wind Tribulation of the mortal world. It was only prepared for cultivators below the human immortal stage. However, Heavenly Zither Fairy, a celestial immortal expert, also triggered a Heavenly Tribulation. What was going on? Fortunately, the Heavenly Tribulation that appeared was still the Lightning Tribulation, flame tribulation and black wind tribulation of a mortal world. Its power was more than 100 times greater than the ordinary heavenly tribulation. But for a celestial immortal expert like Heavenly Zither Fairy, this little heavenly tribulation couldn't even compare to 1,000th of the earthly immortal tribulation. She faced the heavenly tribulation head-on and felt it without the slightest taboo. Not to mention that Fairy Lyra didn't care about this kind of heavenly tribulation. Even Yang Chun, a celestial immortal, didn't care. Yang Chun stood beside Fairy Lyra and was also cleansed by the 3 heavenly tribulations, safe and sound. Aren't you a celestial immortal expert? How could you trigger a mortal tribulation? Yang Chun, who had always been a know-it-all, was finally caught blind this time. He encountered a situation he didn't understand and hurriedly asked, "What's so strange about it? I didn't go through a mortal tribulation. Is it strange to encounter one to make up for it?" Fairy Lyra couldn't help but roll her eyes at Yang Chun and replied snappily, "You didn't go through a mortal tribulation?" Yang Chun's eyes couldn't help but widen. He had never heard of such a thing. If a spiritual realm expert didn't go through a mortal tribulation, how could they become celestial immortals? Didn't she see so many native experts waiting in line? How did Fairy Lyra do it? There must be a reason for this. Seeing Yang Chun's shocked expression, Fairy Lyra knew what Yang Chun was thinking. However, for the time being, she didn't intend to tell Yang Chun about her experience and just gave him a perfunctory reply. Yang Chun also understood what this kind of peerless secret meant and didn't dare to ask too much. Asking too much would definitely be a taboo. Everyone had their own secrets, especially this kind of big matter related to the sect's prosperity. It absolutely couldn't be treated lightly. Why was the mysterious Heaven's sect in such a hurry? It was because without the mortal realm's replenishment, the sect had become rootless water in a tree without roots. Without new disciples to replenish it, the mysterious Heaven's sect could only gradually decline. Why? Wasn't it because the mortal tribulation couldn't appear in the spiritual realm? This caused the spiritual realm's natives to be unable to increase their realm and the sect's strength to not be replenished? If there really was a way to avoid the mortal tribulation and directly become an earth immortal like Fairy Lyra, then what did the mysterious Heaven sect have to worry about? For a moment, Yang Chun didn't know what kind of attitude he should use to face Fairy Lyra. Now that he thought about it, perhaps it was because of this reason that Big Brother Li Chung guided Fairy Lyra to seek medical treatment from him. It was clear that Yang Chun's heart was in a mess, and it wasn't suitable to talk about this topic. Yang Chun put down his thoughts and accompanied Fairy Lyra to familiarize herself with the underwater mansion. Then, he went to Fatty Jing's place to eat a big meal and planned to leave. The chef left behind by Fatty Jing was really good. Although it wasn't as exquisite and considerate as Gong Suanling's, the taste was already at the highest level. In addition to Yang Chun's praise, even the heavenly Zither Fairy also ate heartily, showing a kind of heroism that was not inferior to men. This made Fatty Jing very proud, and he laughed out loud. Since Yang Chun was leaving, Fatty Jing never had the habit of sending people off. He stayed in the cave and looked at the 3 heaven immortal experts through the mountain wall. The 3 guys inside probably never thought that there would be a day when they would become a monkey show in the eyes of others. Yang Chun. When Yang Chun was about to leave, Fairy Lyra finally summoned her courage and called out to Yang Chun. "What?" Yang Chun stopped and turned to look at the beautiful Fairy Lyra and asked curiously. "Li Chung pointed me to you, but there is a condition." Fairy Heavenly Zither bit her lips and finally said the words. "What condition?" Yang Chun was really curious. With Li Cheng's high standards, would he actually raise conditions? "He said that you can definitely cure me." Fairy Lyra's face turned red, and she quickly said, "His condition is that after you cure me, I will marry you." After saying that, she turned and ran. Chapter 1737. What? Yang Chen's mind quivered. Before he could fully understand what was going on, Fairy Tianqin had already disappeared without a trace. This time, Yang Chun couldn't leave even if he wanted to. If this problem wasn't cleared up and the trouble wasn't solved, Yang Chun would definitely have a headache. No matter how brilliant the cultivation method was, it couldn't calm the boiling in the heart. I forgot just now. You said that in addition to a chance, there's also a breath. What is it? Before Yang Chun could chase after him, Jing had already flashed in front of Yang Chun. This was still in the conch underwater mansion, Jing Hu's territory. He would appear directly where he said he would go. To be honest, Fatty Jing really didn't have any foresight. He didn't look at Yang Chun's current situation and actually asked Yang Chun to fulfill the promise he had just forgotten. Are you sure you want it now? Yang Chun asked a little impatiently. Aren't you going to wait until you finish communicating with Fairy Zhou and you can advance a small realm before using it? What's the difference? Fatty Jing didn't think about the difference between the two at all and asked in confusion, You didn't say it. Yang Chun only then remembered that he didn't tell Fatty Jing what a breath was. According to Yang Chun's judgment, Dragon Yuan could definitely let Fatty Jing ascend to the 9th level of the Sky Immortal Realm and then reach the peak of the Sky Immortal Realm. To put it bluntly, it was not impossible for him to ascend directly. However, Yang Chun still needed the conch underwater mansion now. If Fatty Jing ascended too early, it would obviously not be good. Yang Chun was already confused by Fairy Tianqin's words. At this time, Fatty Jing still wanted to intervene. Yang Chun simply didn't hide it and directly said all the possible results. He even said the role of the conch underwater mansion in Chunyang Palace without hiding it. Regardless of whether you ascend or not, you have to keep that heavenly tribulation room. You can exchange it for anything, but you can't take it with you. Yang Chen's words were very direct. Otherwise, I don't mind snatching it from you. He could either immediately rise to the 9th tier of Heaven Immortal Realm and cultivate step by step, or wait until he communicated with Fairy Zhou and directly rise to the peak of Heaven Immortal Realm, or even transcend the tribulation and ascend. Speaking of which, the choice was too easy. Whether it was in terms of time or effectiveness, Fatty Jing would never choose the former. However, since Yang Chun did not conceal the importance of Conch Underwater Mansion to Chunyang Palace, Fatty Jing looked at Yang Chun in new light. As mentioned before, Fatty Jing was a cautious person and a foodie, but he was definitely not a stupid rice bucket. On the contrary, he was very smart. Even if Yang Chun didn't say it, Fatty Jing knew the importance of Conch Underwater Mansion to Chunyang Palace. It was just that the two sides had a tacit understanding and didn't reveal that layer of window paper. Their cooperation could still be considered pleasant. Now that Yang Chun said it so clearly, it was obviously impossible to continue to pretend to be confused. Yang Chun had already shouted out that he would not hesitate to snatch it. Fatty Jing had no doubt that Yang Chun could do it. The Earth Dragon bracelet that he saw not long ago was still on Yang Chun's wrist. That guy alone could bully Fatty Jing 100 times. Looking at Yang Chun's expression, Fatty Jing finally determined that Yang Chun was in a bad mood. He immediately realized that he came at the wrong time and shouted cleverly, "I'll think about it." Then his figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. Now that there was no one, Yang Chun could finally figure out what happened. Fairy Tianqin just suddenly said that Brother Li Cheng wanted her to be his wife. Why did this matter seem so sudden? Yang Chun forced himself to calm down and began to think about whether Fairy Tianqin was lying. After carefully thinking about it for a while, Yang Chun felt that it was not. It was not that Yang Chun was boasting, but Yang Chun really did not think that he was one in a million. Other people would stick to him as soon as they met, and he was not that popular. Fairy Tianqin's previous behavior made Yang Chun feel that it was abnormal. It did not match the reputation of Granny Tianqin, who killed people as if they were paralyzed. Some of them were always submissive, which was very questionable. In his previous life, Yang Chun had never heard of the strong, old lady Tianqin being so obedient to a man. Moreover, it was a junior whose cultivation base was much lower than his own. Even if it was to restore her appearance, Granny Tianqin did not have to compromise like this. Those who wanted to listen to Granny Tianqin's 2 songs had to make 2 circles from the Linyang River to the Lihan Sea. With her personality of never asking for anything from others, how could she be so docile? This was the only explanation that could explain everything. In other words, from the beginning, she knew that she was going to marry Yang Chun. That was why she was so obedient to Yang Chun, a powerful female expert. Only for this reason would she be so obedient to a junior whose cultivation was lower than her. Why did Brother Li Chung do this? Yang Chun did not understand. If he wanted to know, he could only wait until the next time they met to ask clearly. However, there was one thing that Yang Chun could vaguely guess. That was, Li Chung should have predicted what method Yang Chun would use to unlock this seal. So it was like this. After all, letting a woman be naked in front of him, other than her own husband, there was no outsider that could make her so calm. Even so, Fairy Tianqin also struggled for a long time before agreeing. Yang Chen clearly remembered the situation at that time. This was troublesome. Yang Chen really did not know how to describe his feelings at the moment. On the one hand, he did not know how to explain to Fairy Tianqin, nor did he know whether he should agree or not. On the other hand, Yang Chun did not know how to explain to his current wives and concubines. Heaven had pity on him. His original intention was only for Brother Li Cheng's guidance and wholeheartedly to break the seal on Fairy Tianqin. In any case, Yang Chun could not escape. It seemed that Fairy Tianqin could only say those words. This kind of thing, how could a man take the initiative? Yang Chun braced himself to find Fairy Tianqin. In fact, Fairy Tianqin did not go far. She was just hiding in a room in the Conch Underwater Palace. The room was not locked. Yang Chun just knocked on the door and pushed it open without the slightest obstruction. Fairy, is there some kind of misunderstanding? Yang Chun looked at Fairy Tianqin, who was sitting shyly facing the wall and did not dare to look at him. After hesitating for a long time, he finally said this. Misunderstanding? What misunderstanding can there be? As Yang Chun expected, Fairy Tianqin was like an explosive. Yang Chun only said one sentence before she fiercely retorted, My whole body has been seen by you. Do you think I will marry someone else? Chapter 1738. This was also the most difficult part for Yang Chun. Generally speaking, in this kind of situation, it was indeed as Fairy Tianqin said, she could no longer marry someone else. But Yang Chun also felt that he was wronged. Originally, he only wanted to undo Granny Tianqin's seal. Of course, the most important thing was because of Big Brother Li Cheng's guidance. He couldn't let Big Brother Li Cheng go back on his word. From this point, Big Brother Li Cheng's consideration seemed to be a bit hasty. He didn't even ask for the opinion of the person involved. I already have 4 wives, 7 concubines, and even a housekeeper and 30 beautiful maids outside. Yang Chen had to say some things first to avoid problems because of this. Are you sure you want to marry a lecherous playboy like me? Speaking of which, if Yang Chun really wanted to marry Fairy Tianqin, for Yang Chun, there would only be benefits. Not to mention the beauty of the heavenly Zither fairy. Just the background behind the heavenly Zither fairy was enough to make Yang Chun struggle for many years. However, if Yang Chun really agreed, Yang Chun would not be so willing, even if he seemed to have a lot of advantages. Therefore, Yang Chun still hoped to use his lecherous reputation to scare Fairy Tianqin away, making things convenient for everyone. I know, Fairy Tianqin had already calmed down. She was not so fiery, nor was she so shy. She looked at Yang Chun and said, I don't care. Anyway, you already have so many beautiful wives and concubines. It doesn't matter if you have one more, right? But I want to be your wife. Yang Chun had never seen a woman be so magnanimous in the face of this kind of thing. What she said made Yang Chun unable to believe his ears. Yang Chun could easily hear from Fairy Tianqin's words that it was not his own subjective willingness, but a feeling that he had to accept. This feeling was very bad. You don't have to suffer like this. Sighing, Yang Chun said with some pity, You are a high and mighty fairy. Now, and in the future, there is no need to suffer because of a little thing, and there is no need to be like this because of my sworn brother's joke. If you feel inconvenient, I can make it clear to Big Brother Li Cheng. How about it? Yang Chen's rebirth was for his own master, but under a variety of circumstances, Yang Chun had many beautiful wives and concubines. From the bottom of his heart, Yang Chun had always felt sorry for his master, and also for other women. He could only strive to do better, so that they would have a shield against the wind and rain. Yang Chun knew his own affairs. If Gao Yu, Gong Sunling, Shi Shan Shan, and Sun Qingxue could be regarded as a foundation of feelings, then his 7 concubines were completely for the sake of mutual benefits. It was only later that the 7 concubines did very well, so Yang Chun completely accepted them both physically and mentally, and they naturally followed Yang Chun wholeheartedly. From strangers to familiarity to trust, it would take a long time. It was not something that could be done in a day or two, or even a year or two. Yang Chun and Fairy Tianqin had only cooperated for less than half a year. Even if it was to cultivate feelings, it would not be so fast for cultivators. Yang Chun felt that he had already belittled himself and was full of sincerity, but he still underestimated Fairy Tianqin's determination. My surname is Zhou. My full name is Xianying. Fairy Tianqin finally announced her own name, which could be regarded as an answer to Yang Chen's previous suggestion. A woman's reputation is important. Your sworn brother Li Cheng said this at the time. I don't care. For the sake of your sworn brother, let me be your wife and not your concubine, right? Yang Chun was completely speechless. He had said so much for nothing. This woman actually wanted to marry into his family. Granny Tianqin's reputation is not good. I can't let it affect your reputation, so I will change my name to Qingyin, not Tianqin. Zhou Xianying looked into Yang Chen's eyes and said very seriously, What else does husband want? This concubine will obey. As she spoke, Zhou Xianying directly called herself a concubine and called Yang Chun husband. It seemed that she had made up her mind. Phew! Yang Chun let out a long breath, closed his eyes for a while, and opened them again. Looking at Zhou Xianying, who was staring at him, he finally said, Fairy Qingyin, it sounds very nice. Let's do it like this. Yes, husband. Zhou Xianying stood up and curtsied to Yang Chun. Brother, I call you Big Brother. You can call me Big Brother in the future too. Yang Chun said. Since it was already like this, Yang Chun wouldn't be too wishy-washy. A fairy taking the initiative was only good for him, so Yang Chun wouldn't push it away. If he could slightly change Fairy Tianqin's reputation and experience in his previous life, he would definitely be able to save many people's lives and gain a lot of merit. I have to tell you and the others about this. You can cultivate here in peace and refine the cave. Yang Chun continued to instruct. Yes, this concubine won't make things difficult for husband. If there's a suitable opportunity, this concubine will naturally pay her respects to the other sisters. Zhou Xianying didn't try to be the first, just because she had the highest cultivation. She was the first to enter the sect. This was a natural principle that couldn't be changed. During this period of time, you can still think about it. If you're not happy, you can bring it up at any time. Don't be afraid of bearing any debts. Yang Chun sighed again. Fairy, you're as pure as ice and as clean as jade. I've climbed up the social ladder. Before Zhou Xianying could say anything, Yang Chun spoke before her. If you're still willing, I'll hold a grand wedding for you. I won't let you enter the sect without a title. Yes, thank you, husband. A smile finally appeared on Zhou Xianying's face. This cave will be husband's betrothal gift. This concubine will refine it well. This cave? Yang Chun directly shook his head. It's just a small thing that I casually obtained. Just treat it as money for my hard work this time. I have other arrangements for the betrothal gift. Just wait. Although he said he wanted Zhou Xianying to think about it, in fact, Yang Chun also knew that Zhou Xianying definitely wouldn't change her decision. Therefore, the following things were basically more thoughtful. Zhou Xianying could also hear it, and her mood became more and more cheerful. After finally settling down the original Granny Tianqin and the current fairy soft sound, Yang Chun could finally leave with peace of mind. After being threatened by Yang Chun once, Fatty Jing didn't show up until Yang Chun left. He only appeared when Yang Chun was out of sight. At this moment, the person Yang Chun wanted to see the most was his sworn brother, Li Cheng. He wanted to ask him personally, why did he give him a fairy? He actually didn't ask for Yang Chen's opinion before confirming her identity as a co-wife. There had to be some explanation, right? Chapter 1739. On the way back to Chunyang Palace, Yang Chun didn't feel so comfortable. It was not because he was forced to marry a beautiful woman, but because he felt that he had caused enough peach blossom deaths. And now there was one more. But soon, Yang Chun tried to adjust his emotions and make himself normal. In any case, the possibility of Zhou Xianying changing her mind was extremely small. It was better to look forward. As Yang Chun analyzed before, this was a good thing for Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace. Others didn't know, but Yang Chun was very clear about how strong Zhou Xianying's backing in the immortal world was. It was almost effortless to find a big backer for Chunyang Palace. Did brotherly Chung also see or expect this, so he pointed it out like this? No matter what, it was good for himself and Chunyang Palace, so he took advantage of it. Yang Chun was open about it. As for whether accepting Fairy Qinyin as a wife would cause the dissatisfaction of the beautiful concubines, that was a later matter, wasn't it? Moreover, now Yang Chun had something that could give a little benefit to his wives and concubines. It was to win them over in advance and comfort them. The gourd containing the dragon yuan, Yang Chun didn't know how much dragon yuan was left in it, and whether it would disappear with time, Yang Chun was not sure. Therefore, the safest way was to consume it immediately. Back at the sect, Yang Chun went directly to the head of the palace. After using it for Gao Yu and Gong Sunling last time, Yang Chun was brought to Zhou Xianying by the head of the palace. He didn't have time to use it for them. Now Yang Chun finally temporarily solved Zhou Xianying's matter, and he could also spare some time for the elders to use. The head of the palace and the elders, plus the old tree demon Ho Yun, Kuei Xiesha, the first 10 Chunyang Palace seniors who ascended were all in Chunyang Palace at this time. Yang Chun asked them to wait in the sect before he went to the Hatred Sea. Now everyone appeared in front of Yang Chun. I got something good, so I want to share it with everyone. After Yang Chun greeted the elders, he immediately took out the gourd and waved it. Prepare the retreat room. Everyone has a share. The things that Yang Chun took out were of a lower grade. The last 5 turns marrow pill was still nourishing the body of the elders, almost replacing their active cultivation. Now he took out a gourd. No one asked why. They were all prepared in advance, waiting for Yang Chun to call them one by one. Each elder took a big dragon yuan. After inhaling it, Yang Chun didn't give more, just quietly guarding the elders and waiting for them to finish their retreat. It had to be said that the dragon yuan was wonderful. The 10 elders retreated for more than half a month. After opening their eyes, they couldn't believe it. The average spiritual power cultivation base was improved by 1 small realm. The old tree demon, a guy with a deep accumulation, jumped 2 small realms in a row, directly from the 4th grade of the human immortal to the 6th grade of the human immortal, which was the same as Ho Yun after the promotion, which made people stunned. But everyone's harvest was not as good as Ho Yun's. After hundreds of years of diligent cultivation, Ho Yun's yellow turban strongman body refining technique has been cultivated from the high stage of river overturning strength to the peak stage of river overturning strength. He thought that there would be no improvement within 1,000 years. As a result, with the help of the dragon yuan, he directly broke through the river overturning strength and entered the early stage of sea overturning strength. Don't underestimate this small improvement in the realm of the body refining technique. The direct consequence was that Ho Yun's physical strength had increased by more than 5 times. In terms of combat power alone, Ho Yun, a 6th grade human immortal, had no problem fighting against an ordinary 2nd grade earth immortal. If the fact were not in front of the elders, the few who came out of seclusion could not believe their eyes and ears. How is this possible? The white gas in the gourd saved everyone at least 200 years of cultivation time. If they took a few more breaths, wouldn't they all be able to become an earth immortal in a short time? Shi Kuei and Xie Sha couldn't hide their words and asked directly. This is only useful for the first time. Yang Chun smiled bitterly. Everyone's idea was good, but the fact was so helpless. If there was such a good thing that could make people reach the sky in 1 step, it was by no means perfect. Just like the 100-year pill and 1,000-year pill in the mortal world, even if it could make Mu Mingyuan ascend directly, there would still be some shortcomings in some aspects after coming up, and there would always be a price to pay. There was never a shortcut in cultivation. Even now, everyone's cultivation base has directly improved by a small realm, but it still takes a long time to adapt and cultivate their mind to really get the strength that matches the realm. However, relatively speaking, it still saved a lot of time after all, and the advantages outweighed the disadvantages. As soon as the realm of the body refining technique was improved, Ho Yun couldn't sit still and couldn't wait to challenge Yangchun. The old tree demon and Shi Kuei and Xie Sha were all the masters who wanted the world to be in chaos, and they all made a ruckus. Even the head of the palace and the elders were interested and wanted to see the contest between Yangchun and Ho Yun. From the hearts of several elders, it was not necessarily that there was no thought of testing Yangchun. They were also afraid that Yangchun cared too much about the sect's chores and delayed his cultivation. It was not easy for the sect to have such an excellent disciple in all aspects, but the cultivator, after all, still focused on cultivation. It was impossible for the teacher to let an excellent disciple work hard and let others enjoy the fruits of his labor. The place of the contest had to be carefully selected. Others were not clear, but Yangchun and Ho Yun were very clear about the destructive power of the two of them. In the end, Yangchun came up with a way. Everyone went straight to the hatred-parting sea and competed at the bottom of the sea. On the one hand, it was far away from the Chunyang Palace's mountain gate. On the other hand, even if there was any big movement, it could be attributed to the tsunami, so that people would not panic. Originally, it was just a simple competition. It could be regarded as Ho Yun and Yangchun understanding each other's strength. At the same time, it was also regarded as Yangchun helping Ho Yun temporarily adapt to the sudden surge of power. As a result, when they reached the bottom of the sea, Ho Yun still couldn't help but inform Fatty Jing. When Fatty Jing heard that Ho Yun was going to compete with Yangchun, he immediately became interested, so he happily found a suitable place together, ready to join forces with Ho Yun to teach Yangchun a lesson at the appropriate time. When Yangchun left a few days ago, Fatty Jing felt that he had lost face no matter how he thought about it. He was actually frightened by Yangchun. It was one thing to deal with the Thunder Retribution Room, but he must get back at Yangchun for being frightened. When Fatty Jing knew about it, Zhou Xining naturally also knew about it. It was related to Yangchun. How could she not come and take a look? Even if she didn't have close contact with Yangchun, she had to find out more about Yangchun's situation, right? Moreover, this was also an opportunity to understand Yangchun's strength face to face. No one wanted their future husband to be a weakling, right? Chapter 1740. Fatty Jing chose a very open sea area. There were no super strong sea beasts here, and there were no spiritual veins around. Even if it caused great damage, it would not affect anything. It was very suitable. Ho Yun was obviously still adapting. His body refining technique had just been upgraded to a great realm. The sudden surge of power made Ho Yun have a very wonderful feeling. That feeling was like suddenly winning a big prize, and it was a super big prize, which could almost completely ignore many people. Ho Yun thought he knew Yangchun very well. He knew that Yangchun had entered the realm of overturning the sea strength a long time ago. However, a large part of the reason was that Yangchun began to cultivate the yellow turban strongman body refining technique in the foundation establishment stage. His body had not experienced the baptism of thunder tribulation, so his cultivation had grown quickly. But after arriving in the spiritual world, the gap between the two was not so obvious. Even if Yangchun's body refining technique cultivation was fast, he should be at most in the middle stage of overturning the sea strength. Now Ho Yun himself had also entered the overturning the sea strength realm. Although he had just entered this level, the strength of the mighty Ape King's main body was many times stronger than that of Yangchun, a human cultivator. In this way, the power of the two should be equal. In the past, he had been suppressed by Yangchun in terms of power, which made Ho Yun, as the mighty Ape King, feel uncomfortable. Now there was finally an opportunity to equalize and even suppress him. Ho Yun must seize it in any case. If he was excited, he would do something bad. For example, it was troublesome now. Ho Yun wanted to warm up. It was just a few simple movements. He swung his big stick a few times and then casually struck. Then, he awkwardly discovered that even at the bottom of the sea, his full strength movements caused a series of troubles. Several huge whirlpools appeared on the sea surface, setting off several waves of hundreds of feet high. The sea floor, which had just been flat, instantly formed a deep trench under his blow. The realm of overturning the sea strength itself had a huge destructive power. If it was not forcibly controlled, it could easily lead to disaster. Even when Yangchun had just improved his realm, he needed various methods to control it. Now the Medicine Garden Pure bottle and the Earth Dragon bracelet in his hands were sufficient to help Yangchun control it. Even in the spiritual realm, the body-tempering art of this level was really unbearable. The huge movement even alarmed Long Xian and Lan Ning, who was accompanying Long Xian. Soon Lan Ning also appeared here, and after learning the whole story, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fortunately, they were at the bottom of the sea, and there were no powerful sea beasts around. Otherwise, this would definitely be considered a provocation, and they would not stop until one of them died. Can't we compete in strength in a sturdier formation? Lan Ning was disturbed when she was cultivating. Fortunately, she had a single attribute of the 5 elements, and she was cultivating the original cultivation method. Even if she was disturbed, it would not reach the point of qi deviation. But the process did make her very unhappy. Even if the senior officials of Chunyang Palace were present, they could not stop her from complaining. Formation? Good idea. Fatty Jing muttered on the side. Although the commotion that Ho Yun made just now was not very impressive in the eyes of an expert who was close to the peak of the Heaven Immortal stage, it should be known that it was Ho Yun's pure physical strength without using any spiritual energy. Even as strong as Fatty Jing, if he only used his physical body, he would not have such a strong performance. However, when Lan Ning mentioned the formation, Fatty Jing suddenly remembered a formation that he had never used before, which seemed to be suitable for the situation in front of him. I have a formation here that can be used, Fatty Jing said directly, and he did not keep it to himself. He quickly took out the jade slip that recorded the formation. Elder Gao Shurian, who was Gong Sunling's ancestor, was also an array cultivator. After a little study, he immediately understood the role of the formation. This formation was originally used to build a palace on the seabed, which could disperse and eliminate the pressure of the seawater. But if it was used in reverse, it could completely concentrate the weight of the seawater above on the formation. Wasn't this the most suitable formation for the two of them to compete in pure strength? What's more, this formation was quite strong, and there was no need to worry about any disaster. As long as Yangchun and Ho Yun stood in the formation, they could compare the strength gap between the two by simply looking at how much seawater their bodies could bear. It seemed that this method was good. It was simple and effective, and it didn't hurt the harmony. The amount of weight could be determined by controlling the scope of the formation. The larger the scope, the heavier the seawater. Anyway, it didn't need to be precise to how much weight. It was just a competition, so naturally it didn't need to be so complicated. This formation was relatively simple. With the help of Fatty Jing in the late stage of the Fairy Immortal realm, coupled with Yang Chen's materials, it took Elder Gao less than 3 days to arrange the formation. Ho Yun was impatient, of course. He rushed to be the first. He stood in the center of the formation, and after he was ready, he signaled Elder Gao to start. Elder Gao controlled the formation and increased the scope of the formation's influence little by little. Being on the seabed, the weight of the seawater in the range of the formation above began to directly press on Ho Yun's body. In order to intuitively show the weight borne by the two people, a few simple scales were engraved on a long stick. Every foot on the long stick represented the sea area of 100 miles. After the formation was activated, the weight borne by Ho Yun was clearly shown on the long stick. 100 miles, 200 miles, 300 miles, 1,000 miles. It had to be said that Ho Yun shocked many people this time. How heavy was the seawater in the sea area of 1,000 miles? Even for a master of the Fairy Immortal realm like Fatty Jing, it was a little unimaginable for him to use his spiritual power to bear it, but Ho Yun actually used his body to bear it. The Herculean Ape King was really a powerful creature that people couldn't help but admire. Ho Yun now seemed to be a little reluctant. His whole performance was gritting his teeth and the bones of his whole body were shaking. But no one would underestimate him. Everyone was still immersed in the real shock. Everyone knew that Yang Chun and Ho Yun both cultivated a kind of Herculean body refining technique and vaguely knew the name of the body refining technique, but they didn't know the realm of the body refining technique. But there was no doubt that now everyone admitted that Ho Yun could reach the point of overturning rivers and seas with his strength alone. Yang Chun had performed once in front of everyone before, throwing a mountain directly from 1,000 miles away to the mountain gate of Chiman's sect, but at that time, everyone thought that there should be spiritual power to assist. They never thought that Yang Chun would only use his physical strength. Now, judging from Ho Yun's performance, it seemed that it was not impossible to use only his physical strength. When they thought that Ho Yun used to be ashamed of being inferior to Yang Chun, everyone was very curious about how much power Yang Chun had. Within this formation, how much of the sea area could Yang Chun bear? Chapter 1741. Everyone knew that cultivators in the same realm were not necessarily as powerful. Cultivation had the same realm, but the cultivators were different, so naturally, there would be different results. Judging from Ho Yun's eager performance, this time Ho Yun's cultivation must have improved by a realm. Now he and Yang Chun's body refining technique should be similar. Otherwise, he would not be in such a hurry to compete with Yang Chun. Since the realm was the same, the gap depended on the difference of the cultivators. For the result of the competition, everyone in Chunyang Palace, except for Ho Yun, basically had an indifferent attitude. No matter who won or lost, weren't they all the people of Chunyang Palace? It was nothing more than Ho Yun's strength or Yang Chun's strength. They couldn't turn against each other. What did it matter who won or lost? Ho Yun could support thousands of miles of seawater by relying on his physical strength alone, which was already stunning. What kind of achievements could Yang Chun have? Ho Yun, who was in the array, had basically reached his limit. His body began to tremble, and he could no longer support it. Elder Gao also saw this and stopped expanding the scope of the array at the right time, which allowed Ho Yun to catch his breath. In fact, he didn't need to work so hard. As long as he used his spiritual power at the right time, he could still be much more relaxed. He had persisted until now, not necessarily without the intention to explore his own limits. When Ho Yun came out of the array, everyone's eyes were on Yang Chun. Among the people present, except for Zhou Xianying, who could barely be regarded as Yang Chun's woman for the time being, everyone else was from the same sect, but they were not as close as Gao Yugong Sunling and others. Even Zhou Xianying might not have absolute confidence in Yang Chun, even if Yang Chun had done many seemingly impossible things. This had nothing to do with trust or not. The mighty ape king and human beings were two different species, and the starting line was different. Without relying on cultivation, just comparing physical strength, a mighty ape king could beat 10,000 humans. Even if Yang Chun lost, it was not necessarily a shameful thing. Yang Chun strode into the formation. When he just walked in the first step, there was a trace of muscle trembling under his feet that almost no one noticed. This movement was so light and natural that even Elder Gao, who was in charge of operating the formation, did not notice it, let alone the other people who were standing around and watching. However, one of the guy's pupils shrank when he saw Yang Chun's leg tremble slightly. This guy with unique eyesight was the one with the highest cultivation among them, Fatty Jing. The reason why he paid special attention was that Fatty Jing discovered that the inconspicuous bracelet on Yang Chun's hand had always been there. Ever since he was shocked by the huge mouth in the conch underwater mansion, Fatty Jing had been paying attention to the bracelet. Every time Yang Chun made a move, there would be a trace of insignificant force exerted on his arm. It looked very natural, but what was Fatty Jing's cultivation level? He was an expert at the late stage of the Fairy Immortal stage and was close to the peak of the Fairy Immortal stage. When he was constantly paying attention to the bracelet, how could he not notice that trace of abnormality? Fatty Jing could discover the terrifying power contained in that slight abnormality. After observing a few more times, he discovered that the reason why Yang Chun behaved naturally was because Yang Chun's other hand had been playing with a small crystal clear jade bottle. Fatty Jing, who was paying attention, naturally saw a little more than others. The tiny adjustment that Yang Chun made when he stepped into the formation also made him conclude that whether it was the bracelet or the jade bottle, they might be very great things. Among the people present, Fatty Jing was probably the only cultivator who didn't think that Yang Chun would lose. For some reason, watching Yang Chun enter the formation like this, Fatty Jing seemed to put down a lot of things in his heart. Yang Chun stood where Ho Yun had just stood and then motioned to Elder Gao to start. Elder Gao didn't have the slightest psychological pressure. Anyway, even if Yang Chun lost miserably, it wouldn't shake his position in the hearts of Elder Gao and the other elders, so he boldly started the formation. Everyone's eyes slowly moved along the scale on the long rod. Among them, the most nervous was Ho Yun. He originally thought that there would be a battle, but now it turned into this kind of literary competition, which made him unable to vent some of his anger. However, as long as he could suppress Yang Chun, it could also be regarded as a smoother thought, right? 100 miles, 200 miles, 300 miles. The scale on the long rod had slowly moved to 900 miles, which was only 100 miles away from Ho Yun. Everyone's mood became more and more expectant, and they all wanted to see the real result. Zhou Xianing was a little worried in her heart. She wasn't afraid that Yang Chun was not as good as Ho Yun in terms of strength, but she thought that she was Yang Chen's woman. Seeing Yang Chun lose in front of her, she couldn't help but feel a little unhappy. However, Zhou Xianing was also very clear that it seemed that there was only a gap of 100 miles, but the gap of 100 miles on the periphery was far from comparable to the 100 miles at the beginning. Anyone who had a certain level of attainment in mathematics and geometry was clear about this gap. In the eyes of everyone who was indifferent or concerned, the scale on the long rod slowly moved to a place similar to Ho Yun's. It could be said that at this moment, Yang Chun and Ho Yun were already evenly matched. However, Yang Chun was still different from Ho Yun. When he first reached this position, Ho Yun had already tried his best. His whole body was trembling, and he couldn't hold on any longer. However, Yang Chun was calm and composed, and it seemed that there was still not much change. At this point, everyone basically had an idea in their hearts. Ho Yun lost, but Yang Chun still had strength to spare. After this result, everyone no longer cared about who won and who lost, but they were curious about how much seawater Yang Chun could withstand. Ho Yun also had the same thought. He was now basically accepting this result calmly. After all, Ho Yun had just advanced to the next realm, and he didn't even have time to familiarize himself with it. Yang Chun had reached this realm as early as hundreds of years ago. It was reasonable for him to be a little stronger than Ho Yun. Ho Yun was not afraid of losing. Anyway, he had lost to Yang Chun more than once or twice. What he wanted to know now was how much worse he was compared to Yang Chun. Under the control of Elder Gao, the scale on the long rod continued to move forward. Elder Gao was also afraid of hurting Yang Chun. This time, the scope of the control array was also very slow. It was almost pushed out 1 mile at a time. When it was almost 1,100 miles, Yang Chun felt that it was enough. He took the initiative to signal to Elder Gao and asked him not to expand anymore. From this result, Yang Chun was still a little stronger than Ho Yun, but the strength was limited. Chapter 1742. Yang Chun was far from reaching his limit, but he was not willing to let Ho Yun lose confidence. He entered this realm hundreds of years earlier than Ho Yun, and now he was 100 miles stronger than him, which was a result that everyone could accept. It would not make Ho Yun proud, nor would it make him feel depressed. It could be regarded as a happy situation. In addition to Yang Chun, it was estimated that only Fatty Jing saw some clues. Others were either not completely familiar with Yang Chun, or they felt that it was normal for Yang Chun to beat Ho Yun, and it was also common sense that he did not win by much. After all, Yang Chun, a human, competed with the mighty Ape King in strength, and it was not easy for him to win. Ho Yun was very happy, and he felt that the gap between him and Yang Chun had finally narrowed a lot. If Yang Chun entered the sea reversal strength realm hundreds of years earlier than him, he believed that Ho Yun would be able to cultivate to the same level as Yang Chun, and even surpass it. This greatly increased his confidence, and his motivation to cultivate was even more exuberant. After communicating with Zhou Xianying for this month, Fatty Jing seemed to be no longer the simple fatty who only knew how to laugh, but a little more scheming. Now that no one said anything about the result, Fatty Jing naturally would not be stupid enough to jump out and criticize. Next, under everyone's curiosity, everyone entered the array to try the feeling of being pressed by the sea. Basically, if they didn't use their spiritual power, no one could withstand 10 miles of seawater. Even Fatty Jing, who had the highest cultivation, couldn't do so. But as long as he was allowed to use spiritual power, Fatty Jing could immediately reach the same level as Yang Chun, and there was no problem with the pressure of 1,100 miles of seawater. This process also made everyone aware of the incredible power of Yang Chun and Ho Yun. Unfortunately, the conditions for the cultivation of the yellow turban strongman body refining technique were too abnormal. So far, only the old tree demon could meet the conditions by relying on physical strength, but the old tree demon did not want to spend more energy on this body refining technique. When they arrived at the hatred-parting sea, it was unreasonable not to linger in the conch underwater mansion. Anyway, now Fatty Jing had almost the best chef there. Everyone rushed to have a big meal. After a simple sit, the head of the palace and several elders got up and rushed back to Chunyang Palace. Tree demon Ho Yun and the other demons stayed in conch underwater residence to communicate. Yang Chen did not return to Chunyang Palace, but planned to visit his wives and concubines directly. After sending away the master of the palace, Yang Chen also planned to get up directly. When he was about to leave, Ho Yun couldn't help but clamor, "Yang Chen, you should step up your cultivation. Don't let me catch up with you within 100 years. After 100 years, we will compete again." According to Ho Yun's estimation, the gap between himself and Yang Chen was at most 100 years. The emergence of the formation made Ho Yun discover a good way to temper his body refining technique. If he counted the help of Fatty Jing, as long as he cultivated in the formation in the future, he would naturally be able to make rapid progress. Yang Chen had to be distracted with alchemy, and he had to be distracted with the affairs of the sect, which could not be compared with his undistracted cultivation. Hey, without waiting for Yang Chen to answer, Fatty Jing had directly made an unusually contemptuous sound, "Little monkey. If you want to catch up with Yang Chen, wait until you can pick up the bottle in his hand, and then dream on." At this time, there were no high-level officials of Chunyang Palace. In addition to Yang Chen and Zhou Xianying, there were only the disciples of Chunyang Palace's Hall of Eccentrics. When they heard the words of Fatty Jing, everyone was surprised. Everyone's eyes were instantly focused on the bottle in Yang Chen's hand. Yang Chen did not expect that Fatty Jing would point out his intentions at this time. The others had just understood from Fatty Jing's words that they had made a mistake before, and they were all shocked. Zhou Xianying looked at the small jade bottle handle in Yang Chen's hand in disbelief, showing a shocked expression. "You look down on our monster race too much. Do you think it's a good thing to leave some face for the little monkey?" Jing, who sneered and put on a real fairy immortal master's demeanor, and lectured, "If I don't let him really understand the gap, he will never have the real motivation to move forward." Ho Yun also reacted, and his eyes immediately shot a scorching gaze, looking at Yang Chen with surprise. To be honest, when he realized that the gap between him and Yang Chen might only be 100 years of cultivation time, he did have a little slack in his heart. Now that he was reminded by Fatty Jing, he realized that it was not so simple. Yang Chen was a little embarrassed. Although his intention was good, this kind of small deception really meant that he underestimated Ho Yun. At this moment, seeing that everyone's eyes were looking at him, especially Ho Yun with a slight reproach, he also noticed that something was wrong. "Sorry, I have the heart of a villain." Yang Chen immediately admitted his mistake, then directly reached out and put the bottle flat on his hand, indicating that everyone could try it at will. Shi Kuei was the closest, and he reached out to grab it without thinking. Once or twice, the bottle did not move. Even if Shi Kuei used his whole body's spiritual power, the bottle was still as if it was in Yang Chen's hand, motionless. Ho Yun was happy to see the prey. He flew over, pushed Shi Kuei away, grabbed the bottle with both hands and began to shout. In everyone's imagination, even if Ho Yin couldn't pick up the bottle, he should be able to shake it a few times anyway, right? However, no matter how hard Ho Yin tried, the bottle was always in Yang Chen's hand, motionless, and it didn't even shake. To describe it in a more vivid way, it was clearly an ant trying to shake a tree. I have long suspected that there is something wrong with your bottle. Sure enough, Fatty Jing did not simply expose the secret of Yang Chen's bottle. In fact, what he wanted to do most was to try to see if he could pick up the bottle. Although he did not cultivate the body refining technique, his cultivation base was close to the peak of the sky Immortal stage, so he had to try and not pick it up. Ho Yin was convinced by Fatty Jing. He couldn't even move the other person standing in the same place, so he had to be convinced. Seeing that he was also standing in front of him happily, Ho Yin stepped aside and let Fatty Jing do it. Fatty Jing took a long breath and held the bottle with both hands. He had never despised this little bottle, and at this time, he even used all his strength. The strength close to the peak of the sky Immortal stage completely broke out, and he exerted all his strength. Everyone could even see the outline of his bulging muscles under his fat. The bottle shook slightly, and then slowly began to leave Yang Chen's palm. The medicine garden with the bottle containing a sea of water was finally picked up by Fatty Jing. However, Fatty Jing did not last long. After holding on for a while, he finally put it down. Amazing, little monkey. Even if you cultivate for another 1,000 years, you may not be able to pick up this bottle. Fatty Jing directly gave a conclusion. Chapter 1743. Fatty Jing was the only cultivator whose body had withstood Ho Yun's attack. He naturally understood how powerful Ho Yun was. What he said was basically the final conclusion. Zhou Xianying, who had been listening and watching, still couldn't believe what she saw. She thought that Yang Chen being able to defeat Ho Yun was already an anomaly, but she didn't expect there to be so many twists and turns. Zhou Xianying, who couldn't fully believe it, also tried it herself after Fatty Jing. Fairy Soft Note, who was at the early sky Immortal stage, used all her spiritual power, but the final result was just shaking the pristine jade bottle a few times. This was already the best result. Other than Fatty Jing, no one else could imagine how Yang Chen could still move freely after holding such a heavy pristine jade bottle. The way he lifted it, as if it was light, was simply subverting everyone's common sense. Ho Yin finally understood that Yang Chen's realm was far higher than his. Even if he had that formation cultivation and Fatty Jing's help, it was still a joke to want to catch up with Yang Chen in 1,000 years. The monster race was a race that advocated strength. Ho Yin was very happy to accept the fact that he was not as good as Yang Chen. Perhaps, as Fatty Jing said, they were not afraid of a big gap, but afraid of a lack of fighting spirit. On this point, human cultivators couldn't compare with the demon race. Humans always had a lot of thoughts, and they weren't as pure as the demon race. If Ho Yun's current experience was placed on an ordinary human cultivator, he would at least be shaken and have the risk of chi deviation. On the contrary, he wasn't as open-minded as the demon race. Perhaps this was the unique conditions that demon race cultivators had in their cultivation. Before Yang Chen left, all the cultivators in Conch Underwater Mansion, including Zhou Xianying, adjusted their mentality and cultivated. Yang Chen still embarked on his journey after all. He didn't know how long the dragon essence could be preserved, so it was important to see his women as soon as possible and share it with them. Of course, Yang Chen would not forget to leave a share for Fatty Jing and Zhou Xianying, but that would at least be after he returned. He hoped that Fatty Jing could improve with Zhou Xianying's help. According to the distance, the first person Yang Chen saw was Shi Shanshan. It had been close to 200 years since she ascended to the spiritual realm, and Shi Shanshan had almost completely adapted to the spiritual pressure in the spiritual realm. It was time for her to gradually enter a good state. Yang Chen came just in time. A series of dragon essence was absorbed into Shi Shanshan's body, directly accelerating the process. In just half a month's time, Shi Shanshan's spiritual power cultivation had entered the 5th stage of the human immortal realm. His spiritual sense cultivation did not fall behind either, rising straight to the first stage of the heavenly immortal stage. Speaking of which, among Yang Qin's wives and concubines, other than Tao Junki, whose cultivation was far lower than everyone else's in the beginning and had now far surpassed them, the others were all relatively average. There is such a chance. Do you want to go first or little Shui? After protecting Shi Shanshan and consuming her dragon essence cultivation, Yang Chun took out the sixth ancient zither. Yang Chun did not hide the secret and told Shi Shanshan everything he could say, and then asked Shi Shanshan for her opinion. Of the 9 ancient zither, Yang Chun has now collected 6. Whether it is for the ancient zither parts refined by the Dragon Clan, or for the hidden experts, Yang Chun will definitely not let go of the remaining 3. With Yang Chun and Li Cheng from the 5 great sects searching together, it is not impossible to collect all 9 ancient zither. Gao Yu and Gong Sunling have each gone to unlock the seal of an expert, and now there is an ancient zither in their hands. Yang Chun also hopes that Shi Shanshan or Sun Qingxue will find an expert to accompany them. The only thing to consider is who goes first. Let little Shui go first. Without the slightest hesitation, Shi Shanshan gave the opportunity to Sun Qingxue. I have also reached a critical moment in absorbing the sword qi. With the help of your aura, it seems to have sped up a bit. In the next few decades, don't be distracted. Shi Shanshan absorbed the supreme pure yang sword qi left by Ancestor Lu. The biggest feature of this sword qi is its purity. Shi Shanshan said that she has no time to be distracted, not to deliberately help Sun Qingxue, but the truth. From this point of view, Shi Shanshan is not moved by external things and is single-minded. In the future, it is not without reason that Cold Plum Fairy can dominate the immortal world. Although the opportunity was given to Sun Qingxue first, Shi Shanshan is still very happy. Her husband's love is basically a bowl of water. She believes that even if she gives in to Sun Qingxue today, her husband will work hard to compensate in the future and will not leave her alone. Husband, in another 20 years, it will be 200 years since our ascension. The sect may have some other arrangements. After Shi Shanshan finished this sentence, it seemed that she didn't know how to continue and paused for a long time. What she wanted to say was also the secret of the Green Jade Immortal Island, but she was afraid that saying it would make her husband feel unbalanced, and she didn't know whether to say it or not. It doesn't matter. I will fight for the Chunyang Palace. Yang Chun seemed to know what she was going to say, and directly stopped her words. Instead, he carefully exhorted, "But you have to be careful. You are a life and death enemy, and you must not show mercy." After pondering for a while, he added, "Just think of it as if you are in the demon continent." "I know, husband." Shi Shanshan's heart was light. Her husband already knew, and he had made corresponding arrangements, so she didn't need to be so hesitant. Shi Shanshan's hesitation before was also because of whether she should tell Yang Chen the secret of the sect or not. Now she finally didn't have to be in such a dilemma. As for how her husband knew, Tao Junki had ascended for a long time. She should have told Yang Chen, right? Yang Chen didn't think that Shi Shanshan would be so embarrassed. For him, the secret of the 5 major sects in the spiritual world was simply a joke. In fact, as long as the masters of the 5 major sects ascended to the immortal world in the future, who didn't know this? What's more, less than 1,000 years later, the so-called secret would not be a secret at all. Was this worth Shi Shanshan being embarrassed? But Shi Shanshan's intention was worthy of Yang Chen's cherishing. Looking at her, if he didn't stop it, Shi Shanshan would obviously tell him next. Between the sect and her husband, Shi Shanshan still chose her husband. Speaking of it, it was not a particularly big secret. It was nothing more than a good place for the 5 major sects to temper the newly ascended disciples. In other words, not only the 5 major sects, but also several super sects of the Tao sects and demon sects. Even a monster race didn't know about it, and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance was not qualified to participate. Chapter 1744. Several super big sects of Tao sects and demon sects jointly maintain this secret, and the general small sect is not qualified to participate at all. Not only are they not qualified to participate, they are not even qualified to know. Even Shi Shanshan, because of the recent rise in status in the sect, she knew a little bit about it. Yang Chun remembered very clearly that Shi Shanshan was seriously injured in this sect experience, which caused her to spend hundreds of years in vain to heal and delay her cultivation. However, it must be mentioned that after experiencing this experience and experiencing this serious injury and escape from death, Shi Shanshan could be regarded as a real cold plum fairy. But Yang Chun was there. He would definitely not let the experience of Shi Shanshan's serious injury repeat. In fact, after experiencing the experience of the demon continent in the mortal world, Shi Shanshan would no longer relax her vigilance because of her genius cultivation path. As Shi Shanshan said, the experience should be carried out after 200 years of ascension and after thoroughly adapting to the spiritual pressure of the spiritual world. Now, there are still 20 years, so there is no hurry. After Yang Chun and Shi Shanshan got together for a while, they said goodbye to the Green Jade Immortal Island and rushed to the Blue Cloud sect. Sun Qingxue was obviously not as pure as Shi Shanshan in terms of cultivation. At least when her husband came to visit her, Sun Qingxue deliberately stopped her cultivation and accompanied her husband in a big circle in the sect, happy like a little swallow. Husband, after a while, Master will take me to experience, and when the experience is over, I will come to you. Sun Qingxue was also a disciple of a big sect, and they basically reached the same time of experience. So, when Sun Qingxue spoke, she was very helpless. Of course, her helplessness was because she couldn't get together with her husband earlier. Compared with Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue was much happier. She was doted on by her master and valued by the sect. She had never suffered any grievances. Her life trajectory was completely different from that of the dancing snow fairy in her previous life. Even when she went out to train, her master would accompany her, so she didn't have to worry about anything. Be careful when the time comes. Just think that you are in the demon continent. Yang Chun also did not forget to tell Sun Qingxue. Of course, these words were said after Sun Qingxue had finished cultivating with the help of the dragon essence. Similar to Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue had also reached the 5th stage of the human immortal stage and the 1st stage of the heaven immortal stage. To be honest, this realm was not a little higher than the two women's previous lives. He believed that even without the experience of the demon continent, the two women would not have too much problem. Yang Chun still gave the location of the 6th zither to Sun Qingxue. He also hoped that before joining the sex training, it would be best for her to unseal that expert. It was much safer to take a supreme, mystic, immortal expert with her. Next, Yang Chun did not delay along the way. He went to the Qingquan sect to see Shi Wushuang and the 5 Elements sect to see the Murong sisters. The dragon essence was given to them, and the 6 women completely completed the process of adapting to the spiritual pressure of the spiritual world in a short period of time. Their spiritual power and spiritual awareness cultivation were improved, and they were only waiting for the sect to allow them to cultivate freely before going to meet with Yang Chun. This trip was purely for Yang Chun to give benefits, so that the dragon essence would not be wasted after opening the gourd. So the journey was relatively short, and he would only meet with the women for a short period of time. He personally guarded the women, and after the women finished their cultivation, he would rush to the next place. The earth dragon was now very low-key. As long as it did not move, it would basically not emit the aura of a supreme mystic immortal. Even after visiting the 4 major sects, no one noticed the strangeness of the quaint bracelet on Yang Chen's hand. Of course, all the women saw the bracelet, but none of them asked much. Only Sun Qingxue, when lying in Yang Chen's arms, stretched out her delicate hand and fiddled with it a few times. Then, she acted coquettishly and said that it did not look good. She didn't say anything else. After visiting the 4 major sects, Yang Chun came to the Xintian sect, as usual. Of course, he was here under the guise of seeing his concubine, Tao Junkie. Although Yang Chun had killed the disciples of the Xintian sect, the few heaven immortal experts in the sect owed Yang Chun a prolongation pill. So, they had told the sect not to cause trouble for Yang Chun within 1,000 years. The disciples of the Shintian sect were proud of their clear distinction between gratitude and hatred, so no one directly caused trouble for Yangchun. Naturally, only a few people knew the real reason. The dragon essence was naturally given to Tao Junkie first. After cultivating for a while, Tao Junkie directly advanced from the 7th stage of the human immortal realm to the 8th stage of the human immortal realm. Her divine sense cultivation also went straight to the heaven immortal realm. The speed of her growth stunned Tao Junkie herself. If it was not her husband who had brought it, Tao Junkie would have suspected that this person had deliberately brought it to harm her. Wasn't he afraid of causing instability in his realm and going berserk by raising his cultivation level in such an unreasonable manner? Tao Junkie did not go through the trial of the sect because her cultivation partner was an outsider. However, she already had the right to cultivate freely. She just didn't want to stand out alone, so she didn't always stay with Yangchun. In recent years, the sect's elderly had been treating Tao Junkie very differently. Tao Junkie was also very comfortable in the sect. Recently, the sect informed her that they would take her to the sect's secret plane for experience in a few years. It must have something to do with elderly. After telling all this to Yangchun, Tao Junkie didn't realize what was special about this sect's secret plane. Yangchun was very clear in his heart, but he didn't say much. He just told her to pay attention to her safety. Speaking of which, Tao Junkie, Shi Wushuang, and the Murong sisters had not participated in the demon continent's experience, so Yangchun's exhortations were a lot more detailed. This made the girls feel very warm in their hearts. At least their husband was particularly concerned about their safety. Otherwise, he would not talk so much, as if they were little girls who had not grown up, and Yangchun had become a long-winded mother-in-law. After leaving the Shintian sect, Yangchun did not directly return to Chunyang Palace, but turned a corner, turned east and west, and disappeared from people's sight. Soon, Yangchun appeared in a very secret formation, where elderly of the Shintian sect had been waiting for Yangchun for a few days. After greeting elderly, Yangchun immediately offered his own filial piety. Tao Junkie's cultivation could not be hidden from the eyes of others, so Yangchun's filial piety to elderly was also a dragon yuan. Unlike the country bumpkins of Chunyang Palace, elderly, a big shot, was far more knowledgeable than the elders of Chunyang Palace and Yangchun's wives and concubines. So when Yangchun mentioned that it was a dragon yuan, elderly was so surprised that he almost forgot himself on the spot. Tao Junkie's cultivation suddenly increased, and there was immediately a reasonable explanation. Without saying anything, elderly enjoyed the filial piety from his own grand disciple with a clear conscience, without the slightest doubt. This kind of good thing, Yangchun did not forget to show filial piety to him, which showed that he recognized him as an elder from the bottom of his heart. Such a good grand disciple who was affectionate and righteous. If he didn't promote and help him, should he take care of those white-eyed wolves? Chapter 1745. Elderly was an early-stage heaven immortal and should be at the first rank. With the help of the dragon essence, Elderly's cultivation had increased by leaps and bounds in just 1 month of closed-door cultivation, directly reaching the second rank of the heaven immortal realm. Basically, as long as they used the dragon essence, it was natural for them to increase their cultivation by a small realm. From this point of view, it was a bit of a loss for the women to use the dragon essence at this time. However, there was no other way. Ever since the gourd was opened, the dragon essence had begun to slowly dissipate. Although it dissipated 10,000 times slower than under normal circumstances, it was still dissipating. If they didn't use it, it would only be a waste. Giving elderly a portion of the dragon essence was Yangchun's plan. Otherwise, how could he let one of the core upper echelons of the mysterious heaven sect speak up for him? In any case, with his fabricated identity as Teacher Li's disciple, it was perfectly justifiable to give elderly any benefits. Of course, only the upper echelons of the mysterious heaven sect and the core upper echelons knew about this. No one else would have thought that Yangchun would be in cahoots with the core upper echelons of the mysterious heaven sect. Grandmaster, this dragon essence is limited and there's only enough left for one person. When Elderly woke up from his retreat and found that his cultivation base had improved by a small realm, Yang Chun explained with a little fear, "This disciple can't let all the elders have it, so I will only give it to the master ancestor. As for the other elders, this disciple will give it to them with spirit pills." Yang Chun offered the 5-revolution marrow pill with both hands and asked Elderly to pass it to the other elders. For Yang Chun, this pill was just a number and not very precious. However, for Sect Master Wang and the others, whether it was for personal use or as a reward, it was a good thing. Every time Yang Chun came, he had to show his filial piety. Using the 5-revolution marrow pill as a gift was already very good. Elderly naturally understood the principle of not worrying about scarcity. Moreover, he was the only one who enjoyed the good things. His own grand disciple still treated him differently, so he felt very comforted. As for the small matter of not having enough dragon essence, Elderly naturally forgot about it. Didn't he hear his grand disciple say that it was not enough? Even if others asked him about it, he would only say that he had taken the 5-revolution marrow-deepening pill. He had never heard anything about the dragon essence. His cultivation had increased in a short period of time, but that was because he had accumulated enough. How could others say anything about it? After encouraging Yang Chun, Elderly began to talk business with Yang Chun. Previously, he had been shocked by the dragon essence. After that, he had started cultivating and hadn't had the chance to talk about the matter. "I'm afraid that the Zhao family has already realized that we've discovered their plot and has begun to retaliate." At the start of the story, Elderly's expression turned serious. Recently, more than 10 disciples of the sect have been mysteriously killed outside, and we still haven't found the whereabouts of the murderer. A mysterious heaven sect disciple was killed? Yang Chun did not expect the Zhao family to be so powerful. They immediately brought the flames of war to the mysterious heaven sect. This was the best news for Yang Chun. Why did Yang Chun drag the Zhao family into this? Firstly, the Zhao family was indeed plotting something, and secondly, the Zhao family would not let Yang Chun off. Yang Chun was happy to see the Zhao family and the mysterious heaven sect go against each other. "Are you sure it's someone from the Zhao family?" Yang Chun was happy, but he did not show it on his face. His tone was very heavy. "We caught one. It is indeed someone from the Zhao family." Elderly nodded and said with some regret, "Unfortunately, we were too heavy-handed when we attacked, and he died not long after. However, it is definitely someone from the Zhao family." Looking at Yang Chun, Elderly suddenly smiled, turned around, and took out something from his chinquin bag. When he turned back, there was already an ancient zither in his hand. "We found this on him." Looking at Yang Chun's surprised eyes, Elderly's heart was indescribably happy. He threw the zither to Yang Chun. "I'll give it to you. Let's see if you can gather a set." Yang Chun could not believe his eyes. Not long ago, he was still discussing with Shi Shanshan about who to give a supreme mystic immortal expert to. In just a few months, Elderly gave him such a big surprise. This was really an unexpected surprise. Yang Chun never thought of it at first. Looking at them, they want to take Yang Lan away. Elderly's words were not finished yet. The following was the main point. "We only released the news of Yang Lan in a very small range, and they really came to our door. The Zhao family will definitely not be able to escape from the matters of the mortal world." When he said the last sentence, Elderly already had an obvious hatred. The Zhao family was simply a godly teammate. Yang Chun did not know how to describe the Zhao family's cooperation. He racked his brains to get Yang Lan and the Zhao family involved, but he was worried that there was no evidence. Now, the Zhao family took the initiative to extend this kind of information to the Xintian sect. Yang Chun did not need to add oil to the fire. The Zhao family and Yang Lan had already been tied together, and they had become the culprits of the Taishaman's annihilation in the mortal world. He did not know what the Zhao family was thinking, but it was probably related to the Xintian sect's crazy pursuit. As long as it was related to their identity, it could be seen from the attitude of the two Zhao family members. Generally, as long as it was related to their identity, they would be silenced. The Xintian sect pursuit must have found some clues. Otherwise, the Zhao family, who had always been hiding behind the scenes, should not be so impulsive. What Yang Chun could not figure out was why those guys wanted to provoke Yang Lan. Could Yang Lan's current appearance be of any help to the Zhao family? Or did the Zhao family learn the main reason why the Xintian sect dealt with Yang Lan from a certain channel? So they wanted to exchange experience with the culprit behind the scenes? No matter what the Zhao family's purpose was, this was exactly what Yang Chun wanted. Whether it was the Zhao family or Yang Lan, they had now completely become the mortal enemies of the Xintian sect. In the future, the two sides would only fight to the death, and there would be no other possibility of relief. At least the Xintian sect would never compromise. The blood feud of the lives of hundreds of thousands of Taishaman disciples and the reputation of the Taishaman could only be washed with the blood of the Zhao family. Such a big thing happened in the Xintian sect, but Yang Chun did not know anything. It could be imagined that the Xintian sect was also secretly blocking the news. This was also good. The two families were hiding in the dark and biting each other. The fiercer the fight, the better it was for Yang Chun. The sect has a good place to train, but Chunyang Palace is not qualified yet. After Elder Li introduced the recent events of the Xintian sect to Yang Chun, he began to remind Yang Chun, training inside is definitely good for your cultivation. Try to use other methods to move the other sect. A few big sect of the demon sect is also fine. Be sure to let the disciples of Chunyang Palace join. Chapter 1746. Elder Li's words were definitely for the sake of Chunyang Palace. The implication was that the mysterious heaven sect had agreed. As long as Yang Chun persuaded the other sects, the disciples of Chunyang Palace will be able to participate in the trial. No matter what, Chunyang Palace was still a reserve sect of the mysterious heaven sect. They were weak and needed strong support. However, they couldn't openly support them and could only use this roundabout method. Elder Li explained the details of the sect's trial to Yang Chun. He even explained the secret trial location of the sect to Yang Chun. His trust in Yang Chun had reached the extreme. His own grand disciple was able to give him something like the dragon essence. Wasn't this enough to explain the problem? Even if Sect Master Li was still alive and ascended to the spiritual realm, wouldn't he be the same? What's more, even if Sect Master Li ascended and had a good thing like the dragon essence, he might not be willing to give it to him. Where did Yang Chun get the dragon essence from? Elder Li would not ask a single question. Yang Chun had always been rumored to find peerless treasures in various books. Even if he didn't, just finding the dragon essence to show filial piety was enough for Elder Li to not need to trace its source. Even if Yang Chun had killed people and set fire to it, Elder Li would stand behind Yang Chun when necessary. Thank you, martial ancestor. Elder Li was giving him benefits, so Yang Chun certainly wouldn't forget to thank him. He also had a plan in mind. Anyway, the secret would no longer be a secret in a few hundred years. It was better to take Ho Yun and the others there to hone themselves. Apart from Yang Chun giving the dragon essence to Elder Li, it was basically the Zhao family attacking the mysterious heaven sect. Everything else was trivial. However, Elder Li supported his own grand disciple and talked about a lot of big and small things. He didn't even shy away from talking about some of his disagreements with other higher-ups in the sect. The reason why he told Yang Chun all this was because he wanted Yang Chun to pay more attention at certain times. The power struggle and internal strife within a large sect were no worse than a small imperial court. There were many factions within the sect, and Yang Chun had already been counted as part of Elder Li's faction. In the future, wouldn't it be a joke if he didn't understand the situation and inadvertently supported the enemy? Speaking of which, Elder Li and sect leader Wang were on the same side. In addition, he was also on the same side as Hall Chief Liu of the Law Enforcement Hall. Otherwise, Hall Chief Liu wouldn't have given Yang Chun the secret identity of a law enforcer. The other core members of the upper echelons thought that the Grand Elder was the leader and could be considered as another faction. In the general direction, everyone had the same interests, but in some internal disputes within the sect, both sides had differences. These things, Elder Li would not easily tell others. Yang Chun was also in contact with him so many times, especially after this time filial piety of the precious Dragon Yuan. only then did he choose to tell him. From the bottom of his heart, Elder Li had completely regarded Yang Chun as one of his own. And Yang Chen's act of only giving him the dragon essence was also a disguised form of admitting that he was one of Elder Li's people. That was why he would reveal his secrets this time. Of course, Yang Chun cleverly expressed that he would follow Elder Li's lead. Not only himself, but also the Chunyang Palace behind him. Elder Li smiled and accepted Yang Chen's allegiance. In fact, with the relationship between the two of them, there was no need to do this. However, Yang Chen's gesture made Elder Li's mood a little better for no reason. In Elder Li's view, this trip to meet with Yang Chun was really worth it. He further deepened his relationship with Yang Chun, and then naturally obtained the power of Chunyang Palace behind Yang Chun. Perhaps Chunyang Palace was not worth mentioning now, but Chunyang Palace had such a family background in the mortal world. When the number of masters who ascended increased day by day, their strength would become stronger and stronger in the future. With his strong background, Elder Li's status would only get higher and higher. Even if he went to the heavenly court in the immortal realm, he wouldn't have to worry. The sect is not doing well recently. The support for Chunyang Palace is too strong. For the time being, you should go back and concentrate on your development. Don't worry about anything else. Elder Li gave Yang Chun a batch of precious medicinal materials and elixir recipes for personal use, but he didn't give anything for Chunyang Palace. Of course, Elder Li had enough reasons. Just focus on improving your cultivation. Whether it's the spiritual realm or the connection, as long as your cultivation is improved, you don't have to worry about anything. Yes, Grandmaster. Yang Chen's performance was quite attentive, and he vividly grasped the image of a grand disciple who had received a great favor from the Grandmaster. It's almost time. You should also leave quickly. If you take too long, it will arouse suspicion. Elder Li saw that it was almost time. The effect of this meeting was beyond Elder Li's imagination. Thinking that there was nothing else, he told Yang Chun to leave. The future is long. There will be a day when you bring honor to your ancestors. Yang Chun agreed, and after saluting respectfully, he turned and left. Elder Li watched Yang Chen's back as he left the formation, and then he began to slowly clean up the mess here. He put away the formation and waited to leave with Yang Chun. It had to be said that sometimes there were no signs of accidents happening. When Yang Chun just came out of the formation, he immediately felt that he was firmly stared at by a powerful divine sense. It was powerful because the other party's divine sense was at least at the 6th stage of the Earth Immortal realm. Compared to Yang Chen's spiritual power cultivation, it was more than a realm higher. This old man knew that there was something wrong here. As expected, the person who was sneakily using a formation to hide was Grandmaster Yang. My apologies. An unfamiliar voice suddenly spoke, and the words Grandmaster Yang were said loudly and heavily. There was an undisguised sense of mockery, and at the same time, there was a sense of complacency. The elders told us not to touch you easily, and there is no chance in public. The owner of the voice appeared directly in front of Yang Chun. It was an Earth Immortal expert from the mysterious Heaven sect. He looked at Yang Chun as if he was looking at a fish in a net. Unfortunately, you didn't take the road to heaven and barged into hell. In my mysterious Heaven sect's territory, do you think I won't find you just because you're sneakily using a formation to hide? What are you doing here? If you confess carefully, this old man will consider leaving you with a whole corpse. Perhaps because he was too confident in his own cultivation, the powerful divine sense didn't relax at all while staring at Yang Chun, but his tone was really arrogant. AI. Yang Chun sighed and shook his head. Sure enough, you didn't take the road to heaven and barged into hell. There are some things that you really shouldn't know. If you were smart, you wouldn't have shown yourself. What a pity. What a pity. What do you mean? The Earth Immortal expert was confused. Why did he say that it was wrong for him to show himself? While he was still in shock, there was a sound of wind behind him. The Earth Immortal expert turned around and saw a big hand appear in front of him. The hand grabbed his face and easily lifted him up. Chapter 1747. There's nothing else for you to do. Go do what you need to do. Elder Li's voice sounded lightly, as if nothing had happened. But as he spoke, his other hand skillfully took off the earth Immortal Expert's Chinquin bag and threw it at Yangchun. "Yes, Grandmaster." Yangchun answered and reached out to catch the Chinquin bag that Elder Li threw over. He looked at the mysterious Heaven Sect disciple who was struggling like a fish out of water again, shook his head helplessly, turned around, and left. "Grandmaster? Elder Li?" Hearing Yang Chen's name, the guy whose face had been grabbed by Elder Li still didn't realize the danger he was in and cried out in surprise. The moment Elder Li appeared, he had already recognized Elder Li's identity. Even when his face was grabbed by Elder Li, this guy didn't clearly understand the situation and thought that he had discovered something extraordinary. However, after he cried out, he realized that something was wrong and immediately closed his mouth. Now, the mysterious Heaven Sect Earth Immortal Expert's heart was churning crazily. He suddenly realized that he had discovered a huge secret. Why would the sect tolerate a worldly immortal junior who had killed a disciple of the sect? It turned out that the sect had his grandmaster. This shameless old guy, the spy of Chunyang Palace, actually sat in the core position of the mysterious Heaven Sect's Elder of Training. Then, the series of actions that the mysterious Heaven Sect took against Yang, Chun, and Chunyang Palace had a suitable explanation. However, the more he understood this, the more his heart sank, as if he had fallen into an abyss. Elder Li was an all-powerful figure in a big sect like the mysterious Heaven Sect. How could he not see through this guy's imagination? Meeting such a top disciple, he also seemed to be extremely helpless. After carefully thinking about it, this guy didn't seem to belong to his side. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being meddlesome. You saw something you shouldn't have seen and thought something you shouldn't have thought about. Elder Li didn't hide his thoughts and said coldly, "The most important thing is that you're not as important as him, so you can only be sacrificed." Hearing Elder Li's voice, the Earth Immortal Expert's soul almost left his body. How could he not understand Elder Li's meaning at this time? However, no matter how he struggled, Elder Li's big hand seemed to be made of steel and he couldn't break free. The big hand also covered his mouth. Other than making a few muffled sounds, there was nothing else. The big hand began to slowly exert force without the slightest pause. The Earth Immortal Expert only managed to resist a few times before he could no longer resist the grip of the giant hand. Pum! The 6-Yang chief head exploded into a pool of blood. Elder Li withdrew his hand in time, and under the protection of his spiritual power, not a single drop of blood landed on his hand. The headless body of the Earth Immortal Expert fell limply to the ground. Even in his death, he still couldn't believe that his sect's core cultivation elder would kill him so easily. Actually, if he was really smart, he would have thought of this long ago when Elder Li took off his Chinquin bag. You've been relying on your sect's shadow, not using your brain, and not taking risks. So what if you become a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal? He's still trash. Elder Li casually put away the formation flag behind him and looked down at the body on the ground. He casually threw something down and looked around. After making sure there were no flaws, he shook his head and said, "The Zhao family is really insatiable. They actually dared to kill a disciple of my mysterious Heaven Sect in the heart of my mysterious Heaven Sect. If this can be tolerated, what can't? Looks like it's necessary to dig deeper into the Zhao family." After sighing, Elder Li flew up and hurried back to the sect. There were some things that had to be arranged immediately. Time waits for no man. Yangchen didn't look back along the way. He didn't need to stay in the same place to guess the guy's fate. That Earth Immortal Expert from the profound Heaven Sect wasn't a direct descendant of Elder Li. Secondly, he wasn't smart enough. Thirdly, he saw something he shouldn't have seen. It was already fortunate that his corpse was left intact. However, he did not know how Elder Li would arrange the cause of his death. Whether he would frame the Zhao family or the demon sect would depend on which side Elder Li needed. It had to be said that on this point, Yang Chun and Elder Li's thoughts were exactly the same. However, Yang Chun was happy to see it, and Elder Li was also pushing the boat with the current. It seemed that it was good for both of them, and it was also good for both sects in a certain aspect. That guy, he simply had to die. Regardless of what happened next, Yang Chun went straight to Yang Demon School's territory. Of course, it wasn't the mountain gate of Yang Demon School, but the place where Elder High was originally sealed. That place originally had a heaven immortal spirit vein. After Yang Demon School occupied it, it directly built on the foundation of the original small city and became a branch of Yang Demon School. Now, it was presided over by a great elder. Although Madame Fanghua became the youngest elder of the Yang Demon sect in the spiritual world, but after all, her cultivation base was still shallow, and she still needed more tempering. So she also had a deputy position in this branch, as long as she still cultivated and adapted to the spiritual pressure of the spiritual world. With Elder High's support, her days were more comfortable than that of the busy Great Elder. Yang Chun would not forget good things. Lady Fanghua had done a lot for Yang Chun, so naturally, Yang Chun would leave a portion for Lady Fanghua. However, Yang Chun was a little worried now. He did not know how to approach Lady Fanghua. Originally, Lady Fanghua was just a new junior of Yang Demon School. Naturally, she had more freedom. But now that Fanghua was an elder-level character, it was not something that Yang Chun could see if he wanted to, unless Yang Chun reported his name. However, Yang Chun did not want to expose their relationship. This was a little difficult. Fortunately, Yang Chun still had the mask that Elder High gave him. Of the 3 identities that could be transformed, Yang Chun only used Lu Xiang. There were still 2 faces that he had not used. Perhaps he could use one of them to get close to her. However, he needed a reasonable reason. Otherwise, it would not be easy for a human immortal junior to request to meet an elder of Yang Demon School. Just as Yang Chun was in a dilemma, Yang Chun was surprised to find that Lady Fanghua had silently appeared in front of him. Moreover, she had already sent the others away. She smiled sweetly at Yang Chun. Elder High has already sensed the aura of the mask that he refined. He knows that you are nearby, so this servant has already made arrangements. Lady Fanghua looked at Yang Chen's puzzled face. She wore an extremely happy smile as she jumped into Yang Chen's embrace. Her face was filled with happiness as she explained to Yang Chun. Only then did Yang Chun feel relieved. He thought that he was still thinking of ways to inform Lady Fanghua. He did not expect that Elder High's mask would actually have such a use. This was truly a pleasant surprise.